I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Sorrell?
Here.
Assistant Mayor Grasso?
Here.
Councilor Farini?
Here.
Councilor Marchand?
Here.
Councilor Penelakis?
Here.
Councilor Hines?
Here.
Councilor Reynolds?
Here.
Councilor Whitehouse?
Here.
Councilor St. Laurent?
Here.
I'd like to ask everyone to rise for a moment of silent prayer in memory of a great lady, Cecilia Kane, followed by Councilor Hines' Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
We'll get right into the Mayor's Awards, and there's a little change here because George Hosker is with us tonight, and he's really got to get to his job. So I'll start off with George, and George Hosker, in sincere appreciation for all of the many hours you devoted over the years to coordinate and lead the illuminated Christmas parade. Thanks for a great job. Come right up here. You're welcome. Hey, you didn't spill the water.
All right. Yeah, I know.
George.
Over the top.
Take care, hon. Thank you.
Oh,
Hey,
God,
this is your night. I can see that.
Thank you, George. May I?
You certainly may.
I would like to thank the mayor and the city council for their support of the holiday parade. Though I only agreed to produce the parade for 1 year, when I took it on, I found out that after 7 years, it was important to keep the spirit of the holiday alive in Portsmouth. I would like to thank John Bahanko and his terrific staff for their help, as well as the countless number of volunteers who have come forward and assisted in our efforts. I wish Mayor-elect Steve Marchand much good luck and goodwill. However, this year's parade was my last as parade chairman. Though I will do everything possible to ensure a smooth transition. But I only serve one master. And that master is Mayor Evelyn Sorrell. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one is proclamation for, it's going to take me a while here tonight, people. I'm a little mixed up. Oh, there it is. Audrey. Yeah. Audrey Burnham. Right, yes.
Yeah, how about it?
I got it right or I didn't get it right? Spearns. Sorry, dear. Mwah. Love you too, darling. I want to tell the people for all of your wonderful work leading the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Cemetery Committee, your commitment to preserving and improving the cemeteries and bringing citizens' attention to these important sites is greatly appreciated. And tonight I'm going to be asking that Audrey be honorary chairman of the committee, something that she can take with her. You hold on now, we got a guest blanket. Now, Audrey, I know you want to say a few words. You go right up to the podium, darling. Wow. This is on. Is this on?
You can use that one right there.
I never in my lifetime would have ever thought that I would get an award like this. And Mayor Sorrell, I so thank you for giving me the chance to serve my community and try to make Portsmouth a better place through our wonderful cemeteries and through the programs that we do there, the Bringing the Dead to Life program. Many of you know I had a stroke just when I was embarking on this, and I never thought I'd be able to do it. But if not for your support and your cheering me on with all my ideas, I would never have done this. And I also must thank my wonderful husband. He has been with me all the way as the co-chair. And we are going to present a wonderful program in 2006, and we hope you watch the newspapers and come to some of my programs. We have a wonderful cemetery committee. I don't know if any of them are here. If they are here, they deserve appreciation too. And I can't thank you enough. Thank you, Audrey. Now we're down to a very, very special person to me that I have known for many, many years, and which is John Sullivan. John gave us 35 years of service to this city, 20 years on the Portsmouth Board of Education, and 15 years on the Planning Board. He will be sadly missed. And what can I say? He is a man that comes along once in a lifetime. Do you want to say a few words, John?
I sure do.
Good. Keep them all in line now.
Honorable Mayor, Councilors, Mr. Bohinko, Mr. Sullivan, and Mrs. Barnaby, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for this honor that you have given me this evening. I am both humble and proud to receive this proclamation, and my entire Sullivan family thanks you as well. Both Martha and I have enjoyed these past 35 years of public service, and we have met so many wonderful people along this journey. Our city is so fortunate to have great employees who truly go above and beyond the call of duty to make Portsmouth a great place to live, and it is a pleasure to live in this city. Evelyn, thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve, and thank you for the many hours and acts of kindness that you have provided in your leadership role. We all appreciate you. If I can be of any assistance in the future, please feel free to call upon me. I will be around. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'm down to my two RSVP people that have worked in my office for 8 years, and that is Joan Castro and Rosemary York. I think Rosemary had to go to a dinner, but here comes Joan, and they're wonderful. And she is looking for work, so where's the mayor?
Oh, yeah.
She's
We'll
a
keep
good
you
one.
busy. Absolutely.
Thanks, sweetheart. I will. Here's your book. Here's your miniature right on the bottom. Take care, darling. Well, you've been a pleasure to me. I will. Bye-bye, dear. The other one was Rosemary York, as I said, that couldn't be here. But she was another great worker that was with me for 8 years. Now we are down to Robin McIntosh. Robin is quite a woman. Are you still here, Robin? Yeah. I want to thank her for her many hours of volunteering as the president of the Citywide Neighborhood Committee. There's no question in my mind, Robin, you have done an outstanding job, and I feel very comfortable with you taking the helm. Did you want to say anything? Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Don't leave us. All right. Now we are down to Barbara Massa. She's the executive director of Pro Portsmouth, and she is going to be accepting a mayor's award tonight. Also, she might as well stay put at the podium because we're going to be doing a proclamation. Are you here, Barbara? Oh, come right up, Barbara. This, Barbara, is in sincere appreciation for the many hours you have worked as executive director of Pro Portsmouth for the various downtown festivals. You have done an outstanding job, and we really appreciate it. Okay. Oh, boy, just what I needed. Oh, thank you, hon. Oh, if it's not freezing. Thank you. Don't go too far away now, because you're Mayor's Award. I'm going to ask, your proclamation. I'm going to ask Assistant Mayor Grasso to read it, and then we'll give it to you. And I want you to say a few words about it.
First of all, I'm not going to do the parade. No. In all seriousness, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's really an honor to accept this, and I accept it on behalf of all of the volunteers, the hundreds of volunteers who put on our events, the musicians, the performers that we contract for all of our events. And it struck me the other day when the mayor and I were speaking on the phone, the importance of passion and perseverance. About 4 years ago, I attended my first meeting with the city manager, and his department heads, and it was more than a little daunting, I'll tell you, to walk into the city manager's conference room. And my board president at the time, her name was Mimi Grady, she introduced me to Mr. Behenko, and she said, John, I'd like you to meet our new interim director. And he said, another one? And so I thought, well, that wasn't a great way to begin, but here we are, almost 4 years later, and I think we've forged a really great, respectful relationship between Pro Portsmouth and the city, and I thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
I have a proclamation. Whereas the Seacoast is celebrating the return of First Night as a New Year's event in the heart of downtown Portsmouth, and whereas each year Pro Portsmouth and its volunteers work together to provide an evening that is family-friendly and alcohol-free in many of our beautiful historic buildings, churches, and community centers, and whereas we welcome the many talented musicians, dance companies, and artists who will delight us with their eclectic performances on the last night of 2005, and whereas Pro Portsmouth continues its mission as a nonprofit organization dedicated to celebrating and sustaining the vitality of Portsmouth's arts, culture, and history through the events and community collaboration. Now, therefore, I, Evelyn Sorrell, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, do join with the members of the Portsmouth City Council in officially welcoming our community members and visitors to First Night Portsmouth 2006 in the City of Portsmouth, and thank Pro Portsmouth and its volunteers for their dedication and hard work. Given with my hand and the seal of the City of Portsmouth on this 19th day of December 2005, Evelyn Sorrell, Mayor.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Bob. If you need anything, I'm not going to be too far away from my phone. Take care.
That ends the Mayor's Awards and the proclamation. Now we're down to a presentation regarding the Poet Laureate.
Mayor Sorrell and city councilors and everybody, thank you for letting us speak to you. I'm Nancy Hill, representing the Portsmouth Poet Laureate program, and standing next to me is Portsmouth Poet Laureate Minnie White. We've come to extend an invitation specifically to city council members, both those of you who are ending your terms and those who are beginning new terms, to join the project that we are about to embark on, and I'm going to let Mimi tell you about the project.
The project will be called, or is called, What is Home? We have designed this project so that people of the Seacoast can explore the theme in depth with different writing groups around the city. We have organized 5 writing groups to meet at various sites, various times around the city of Portsmouth, starting in January and running through February, taught by writer teachers who have several years' experience teaching regular folks how to write poems. We will explore the theme of what is home this year, generate poems and some very short prose. Next fall, we will collaborate with Voices from the Heart and Pontine Movement Theater, where some of the poems will be transformed into theater pieces performed by local people in community theater and sung by Voices from the Heart. We also hope and invite other city organizations, nonprofits, galleries, businesses to collaborate with us and perhaps adopt our theme of what is home. We see an enormous response to our call for participants. We received, I think, almost more than 90 applications for around 60 slots. So you can see that it's a topic that is of great interest to many people of many ages, from many walks of life. Bless you. We have begun to form our groups this evening. Nancy and I worked hard this afternoon, but we would certainly save a place for any of you who would like to join us. So Nancy's coming around with some sign-up sheets.
Thank you. Yep. All right.
We understand that you need to know your committee before you can tell us.
We anticipate not only 50 or so or 60 people generating poems and short prose in these groups, but we have composers involved, theater people involved, and as some of you already know, Voices from the Heart is composed of 200 women, and their performance in the fall always brings out huge crowds. So we see this as meeting many, many people and inviting many people to explore this theme with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
very much, both of you. Now we're down to a presentation by Mellison, Heath and Company, PC Auditor's Financial Report for the year ending June 30th, 2005. I'll pass this to our city manager to get it started.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight we have representative from Melanson and Heath and Company, Scott McIntyre, who will be presenting to the City Council the audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2005. Scott?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come in this evening and to discuss our audit of your financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2005. This fiscal year 2005 represents the third year in which the city has implemented the new financial reporting model for cities and towns. So it's getting a little more difficult to call it the new financial reporting model, but it was such an overwhelming statement. Members who I've seen here before, you've heard me speak the last couple of years about GASB Statement Number 34, but because of the overwhelming nature of it, I thought it would be of value to the reader of your financial statements if I just sort of reintroduce the new part of the financial statements to you once again, because essentially, in the document you have in front of you, there are really two sets of financial statements. That's what was required when you implemented GASB Statement Number 34. The new perspective was designed to be a little more long-term in nature, where the old perspective, and I'll indicate which pages of your financial statements I'm referring to when I talk about the new perspective being long-term in nature versus the more traditional reporting model, which really focused on current resources and current uses of those resources. So I'll walk through those. I'll take about 10 or 15 minutes to walk through the high points of the financial statements for you. Then I'll try to answer any questions that you may have on your financial statements. And we understand that our management letter, which accompanies the audit, was passed out in your packets over the weekend. We'll answer any questions you may have on that as well. But before I get into talking about the numbers, if you will, I think it's important for me to let you folks know that the audit went well. Before we start talking about numbers, just to put things in perspectives. When we started our audit, we came in here, as we have for the last several years, all of the key cash and receivable accounts between the general ledger and the treasurer's office, all of the key and major reconciliations were performed on a regular basis. I always just find it valuable to talk about the audit from that perspective before we get into talking about what the numbers mean and all. I just wanted to leave you with that little bit of information. With that being said, if I could turn your attention over to page 1, immediately following the table of contents, it is the independent auditor's report. This is our report on your financial statements. It goes on for about a page and a half. I can summarize it very quickly, and that is that our opinion is that your financial statements are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for governmental entities. That is increasingly becoming more and more challenging as in the last 3 or 4 years, the GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, they're the body that sets the rules that you folks need to follow when it comes to preparing your financial statements. They've issued somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 or 18 new standards just in the past few years. So increasingly, being in compliance with all of the generally accepted accounting principles is becoming more and more challenging. but nonetheless, our opinion on your financial statements as outlined on page 1 and 2 here is that your financial statements are in accordance with all of the GASB requirements and therefore in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Just moving on to page 3. Page 3 through 16 is management's discussion and analysis. I often refer to this. This is one of the new elements of your GASB 34 financial statements. I often refer to this as the Cliff Notes version of what you're going to read subsequent to page 16. It tells you a little bit about what happened during the year and why certain key numbers changed. I'm going to do a lot of that when we look at your balance sheet and your income statements. Page 3 through 16 is an excellent reference point for coming back at a later point in time, and a lot of what I'm going to try to introduce tonight as far as why certain things changed and how to read these complex financial statements is outlined in management's discussion and analysis. So it's a great reference tool. And as I'm hitting some of the high points, I may make reference back to, I may not turn back to, but I may suggest to you that you may want to make a note that if you want to turn to a certain page at a later point in time, you can read about why certain accounts have changed. With that being said, I'd like to jump all the way over to page 17. Page 17 is your statement of net assets. 17 and 18 are some of the two new statements that are required by GASB statement number 34. The perspective here is that these financial statements are designed to be looked at over the long term. We'll get to in a minute those statements that are short term in nature. Essentially here you have 3 columns. I'll start first with the middle column, your business type activities. Essentially that represents your water and sewer enterprise funds. Everything else is consolidated into that first column of numbers known as your governmental activities. Your general fund, your special revenue funds, your capital project funds, and your trust funds are all consolidated into that one column, okay? As well as your fixed assets and your long-term debt. Now, the GASB has suggested that the key number on this page, page 17, is in that first column of numbers, and it's the second number up from the bottom. It's your unrestricted net assets of $15,161,000. It's not to be confused with your unreserved fund balance in your general fund. This is a different perspective than just looking at your fund financial statements. And getting back to GASB's intent with producing a balance sheet that looks like this is very simple. Monitor this account, this unrestricted net assets. Increases to this account will generally mean some positive things taking place in the city and your financial condition would be improving. Decreases to that number are probably indicators that there may be a problem, and you would want to look at why the decreases are occurring. I'm pleased to be able to report to you that number, the second number up from the bottom in your first column there, $15,161,000, that's up about $5 million over the same point in time a year ago, June 30, 04 to June 30, 05. About a $5 million increase. And there are some specific reasons for that. And actually, if you wanted to make a note, I'm not going to walk through it in detail, but page 7 of your management's discussion and analysis give you some great outlines as to why that increased so much. You know, one key element here is that during the year the city received a rather large grant for construction of a capital asset. That grant meant that you didn't have to go out to the bond market and borrow money to do the construction. That grant revenue drops right to the bottom line and helps your unrestricted net assets. There are a number of other elements that help drive that increase of almost $5 million. And again, if you were to go back to page 7, you see many of those outlined there. Moving forward to page 18. Page 18 is a very different looking income statement. Traditionally, income statements start with revenues and subtract expenditures to come out with a net number. But the GASB looks at governments as expenditure-driven organizations, and therefore this income statement starts with expenditures and subtracts revenues. So I have just selected the function on the left-hand side there under governmental activities, 2 rows down, you see public safety. All of your expenditures are categorized by function, general government, public safety, education. I've just selected the function of public safety, the providing the citizens of Portsmouth public safety services. And I'm going to work from left to the right. The first column of numbers, the expenses for public safety, $13,503,000. That's not just the general fund. It's the general fund plus any of the special revenue funds and any other funds that the city has that are expended for providing public safety services, totaled $13.5 million. I'd just like to reiterate, that's not simply the appropriation from the general fund. It includes many other things as well. Starting with that number of $13.5 million, now we're going to subtract related revenues. They're known as program revenues. The next two columns of numbers in particular. See charges for services lined up with public safety. You see $1,141,000 in charges for services revenue that were generated by your public safety departments. The largest component of that would be the revenue that is generated through police details. So locally generated revenues that helps offset that cost. The next column of numbers, the operating grants and contributions, $957,000. Well, the public safety departments have applied for and received both federal and state grants to help with the operation of their departments. So, again, we started with a $13.5 million in total expenses to operate the public safety departments. You subtract a little more than $1 million in locally generated revenues, subtract a little less than $1 million in operating grants and contributions, and you go over to the number that's in parentheses under the governmental activities column, and you see it in parentheses of $11,404,000, rounded there. It's $11,404,684. It's in parentheses indicating that that is the net cost to essentially the property tax levy by the city. It's funded by what are known as general revenues, which is property taxes and interest and penalties that you may collect on outstanding receivables. Those revenues that can't be identified with any one particular function, such as public safety or human services or another particular function. So again, the traditional income statement starts with revenues and subtracts expenditures. This is very different. It starts with the it starts with the gross expenditures of $13.5 million and subtracts related revenues, giving you the net cost to what is essentially, the tax levy and the general revenues of the community. I'll move on. That's a very quick overview of the statement of statement of activities for the city. I'd like to turn your attention over to page 19, if I could, please. Page 19, and in the next few pages, 19 and 21 in particular, are more traditional-looking financial statements for cities and towns. Many few more columns here, and this is what is known as the old perspective or a more short-term perspective. There's no fixed assets associated with these balance sheets. There's no long-term liabilities associated with the balance sheet that you see on page 19. It is essentially a cash basis balance sheet, if you will. And even with all of the new information that's included in this financial statements, the management's discussion and analysis, the last couple of the statement of net assets and that different-looking income statement, still the first place just about every reader of your financial statements is going to turn to is on page 19, first column of numbers, third number up from the bottom, or your unreserved, undesignated fund balance reported in your general fund. Again, on the first column of numbers, third number up from the bottom, your undesignated fund balance in your general fund, $6,426,000. Again, that's the first place just about every reader of your statements is going to turn to evaluate your creditworthiness and your financial position. That $6.4 million is up a little bit over the prior year. June 30, 2004, that number was about $5.9 million. So you see a little bit of an increase. You see about a $500,000 increase over the prior year. So on the newer financial statements, the long-term perspectives, you see positive trends. And in the short-term perspective here, you also see some positive trends. And generally, one is going to lead into the other. But it can't go unnoticed that when you look at both perspectives, really both sets of financial statements, you see some positive trends going on here. Just getting into it a little bit further, that's $6,400,000. That represents about 9% of your operating budget, and that is in line with the ordinance that the city has for maintaining an unreserved fund balance. That ordinance is both discussed in your management's discussion and analysis, and it is also outlined in your notes to the financial statements. If you wanted to just make another note, back on page 10 of your management's discussion and analysis, there's even some nice graphs and all that talk a little bit about the trend in this number. A lot of good information there. And I would like to turn your attention to two more pages in the financial statements, just some highlights here, and they actually are the last 2 pages in your document. Historically, the reader of your financial statements has liked to, because the general fund is, of course, the primary fund of the community, and again, even with all the new information that GASB 34 requires, remember I said the general fund is the one thing people really want to turn to. The reader of your financial statements has always liked to see a comparative balance sheet, which you see on page 52, and a comparative general fund statement of revenues and expenditures. There's not a tremendous amount to talk about there that I haven't already spoke about. On page 52, the first column of numbers, the third number up from the bottom is that unreserved fund balance that I spoke of, $6,426,000. Here you see that your balance sheet at June 30, 2005, directly comparable with that balance sheet from June 30, 2004. And you see that key number, that's unreserved, undesignated fund balance in the general fund, is up approximately $500,000 over the prior year. That is a very fast walkthrough of your financial statements and another introduction to GASB statement number 34. I wanted to leave some opportunity and some time, if I haven't used up all of my time, to try to answer any questions that Mayor and Council may have on the financial statements.
Are there any questions, councilors? You all set?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
It's like everybody's happy. That's what we want.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Now we're down to the public comment session.
There are no speakers this evening, Mayor.
Well, there are no speakers this evening. So we're on to the public hearing, and the public hearing is a resolution authorizing a bond issue of up to $15 million for the construction of a public parking facility. Now, I will pass this to John to give the people the input on this.
Thank you, Your Honor. As a result of the vote of the City Council meeting conducted on December 5th, I'm bringing forward for public hearing and adoption a resolution authorizing a bond issue of up to $15 million for the construction of a public parking facility in accordance with the joint development agreement with Harbor Corp. Approximately 7 years ago, the Economic Development Commission worked on a report known as the Northern Tier Study, and as a result of that report, there was an identification for a conference center and hotel that should be in that area of the city. In January of 2004, the City Council authorized me to work with the Economic Development Commission and Harbor Corp to develop a public-private partnership on a public parking facility, hotel, and conference center. In November of 2004, the City Council approved a memorandum of understanding, which was the genesis for the joint development agreement, which was approved on November 14th. For approximately 7 years, the Economic Development Commission has worked steadily on this project. And at this time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Dana Levinson, the chairman of the Economic Development Commission, to come forward to say a few words. And while he's doing that, I'd like to have Nancy Carmer and Andrew Pergel hand out to all the audience copies of the exhibits that I will be reviewing after Dana has completed his comments.
Good evening. This may come as a surprise, but I will not be doing the parade either. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, good evening. Tonight, you are being asked to take the next step in the planning process by authorizing the bonding for the proposed garage as outlined in the joint development agreement with the city and Harbor Corps. The public hearing tonight, it's an important opportunity for all interested parties to weigh in and express their particular point of view. As you consider this bonding resolution and listen to the public discourse, the EDC asks that your final deliberation and vote take into account two very simple questions. Number one, will a conference center in the central business district be an asset to the city of Portsmouth, and will it help to promote the economic prosperity of our community? Number two, have the financial pro formas that you have before you tonight made a convincing case that this bond will be repaid through sources and revenues such that our city taxpayers will not be burdened? The EDC firmly believes the answer to both of these questions is a resounding yes. I have been before you a number of times outlining why we believe this is a critical project with short and long-term benefit to our city. I won't restate our case tonight. But as you consider the bonding financial pro formas before you, we ask that you have confidence that each and every variation you have reviewed, pro forma A, B, C, and D, justify a vote in favor of tonight's bonding resolution. And in fact, if I may be so bold, you could have additional pro formas all the way to Z with any number of different assumptions. And in my opinion, the bottom line would remain the same. This is a worthy project that justifies your favorable vote tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. As you recall, Your Honor, on November 14th, the joint development agreement was approved by the City Council. The public hearing on this bond issue is the next step in the process to move forward on a public-private partnership with Steve Griswold and Harbor Corp for the development of the conference center, hotel, and public parking facility. What I provided as exhibits to the audience, also just as a note, all these exhibits are on the city's website and as well as the joint development agreement. The first item that you have is the memorandum that I shared with the City Council, but I'd like to walk through the exhibits that are attached to that memorandum. And the first exhibit, of course, is the resolution dealing with this bond issue. It's a $15 million bond issue, and it requires 2/3 vote of the City Council. The next item in your packet is the debt service limit for general debt for the City of Portsmouth. Right now, our general fund debt is at $21.9 million, or 21% of our capacity on our general debt. The next page that you'll see is the debt limit. If this project is approved, it would increase our debt by $15 million to $36.9 million, or 35% of our debt limit. We would have 65% remaining. The next item in your packet is a report from Standard & Poor's. This was a report that was developed when the city issued $10 million of bonds in August of 2005. Standard & Poor's upgraded the city of Portsmouth from a AA- to a AA. And I draw your attention to the second page of this report that indicates under finances that the Portsmouth financial position has improved consistently over the past 5 to 7 years. The city has generated operating surplus on a regular basis since fiscal year 1997. I would also like to draw your attention to paragraph 2 on that same page, which states, experience and capable management coupled with long-term planning and financial policies has contributed to Portsmouth's strong financial performance and moderate debt burden. Moving on to the next item that I've attached is a letter from Peter Frazier, Senior Vice President of First Southwest Company, our financial advisor. I'd like to read paragraph 2, which says, both rating agencies indicated that the city's debt position will continue to be considered moderate and manageable after the addition of $15 million of general obligation long-term debt for the public parking facility. The credit impact of the bonds would be neutral to slightly positive, given that the parking fee revenue and the tax revenue associated with the new conference center and related development is expected to exceed the debt service and operating costs for the facility. Following the issue of the bonds, the city will have used only 35% of its debt limit and will have approximately $68 million of remaining borrowing capacity. Next items that you will see are pro formas A, B, and C. Now, I won't go through those specifically because I did provide those to the council at the last meeting and went through those in detail. They have been available to the public for the last 2 weeks on the website as well as in other public places. But I would like to turn your attention to a new pro forma D. And I'd like to take this opportunity to walk you through the assumptions that were made in pro forma D. There were comments after I made the presentations on pro formas A, B, and C after the last city council meeting, and one was that we should include operating costs in our pro forma. One thing I would draw to the council's attention is that typically when we do our bond indebtedness, we do not show the operating costs. We didn't do it for the library or the high school or even the High Hanover expansion. But in this instance, there were questions that came up, and we thought it was important to include that in pro forma D. Also, what we included in pro forma D was additional revenue that we did not include in the other pro formas, and that is the conference center property tax, the new property taxes that would be derived from the hotel and conference center. Now, I would draw your attention to the boxes at the top of the page to go through the assumptions that were made. First, there's assumption that 332 of the spaces would be funded as tax exempt. The non-tax exempt would be 325 spaces, which would be the long-term lease with Harbor Corp, for a total of 657 spaces. You can see the breakdown on the costs for tax exempt and non-tax exempt. With regards to our interest rate assumption, on tax exempt we use a 4.5% interest rate assumption. On non-tax exempt we use a 6% interest rate assumption. In addition, what we did in this particular bond issue, we showed over 20 years equal payments. I think this was to be done so that we would have a good comparison for the public to understand. Moving over to the revenue assumptions, what we did is we took the 332 spaces that would not be leased by Harbor Corp but would be available for the public. And what we did is we took the 30% of spaces, we assumed that they would be used again, we took the 332 spaces and we assumed that they would be used only 30% of the time, meaning that they would be vacant 70% of the time. We multiplied that out and came up with a annual revenue of $654,000. In addition, as part of our revenue assumption, we took the $750,000 in new property taxes. These property taxes and these estimates were made by our consultant, Robert Crawford, and that report, of course, is attached as well. Now, what I'd like to do is go down column 1, and I apologize if people cannot follow along, but I'll try to do the best I can. Under column number 1, you'll see the bond payment, principal and interest, is $1,228,000. Now, the operating for the garage, we estimated at $300 per space, and what we did is we increased that operating expense at 3% a year over the next 20 years. In the first year, total expenditures would be $1,425,000. Now, going down to annual revenues, you'll see that the yearly lease payments without land credit is $390,000. With a land credit of $92,500, that means that Harbor Corp would be paying an annual net payment of $297,500 in the first year, in the first 5 years, and then after such, they go up in accordance with the joint development agreement. Looking at other annual revenue, you can see that we projected that the 332 spaces would be used only 30% of the time, and that would be $654,000. Now, for 20 years, we assumed a very conservative position on this, in that we said that all 20 years it would be at 75 cents an hour. Next, there's retail space that's going to be available. There's 7,400 square feet of retail space. What we did is we did an assumption that the retail space would be rented at $15 per square foot and 90% occupancy. What we did is we assumed a 3% increase per year over 20 years. Now, the $15, again, is a very conservative number. And you can see in the first year that this would be $99,900. Then what we did is we took the first years of property tax of $750,000, and going down you'll see that total annual parking revenue would be parking revenue and other revenue would be $1,801,000, and the total annual parking facility bond cost and operating would be $1,425,000 for a net positive result of $375,828. Now, moving all the way over to the right to the totals and down to the right-hand side, you'll note that the positive result after 20 years utilizing this format would be a total of $15,210,000. Your Honor, what I'll do is move on to the next exhibits. The next one is a summary of all pro formas, and what I'd like to do is speak briefly about pro formas A, B, and C, and then also talk about D and the summary. Pro forma A was utilizing, if you recall, the actual High Hanover parking facility data from fiscal year 05 as it relates to revenue. And you can see the positive results down on the total 20-year principal and interest payments, going down to the expenditures and then to the revenues, for a positive result at the end of $5.6 million. Now, in pro formas A, B, and C, we did not utilize the operating or the operating costs or the revenues from the taxation. But what we did is we utilized primarily the amount of money in pro forma A that was derived from the High Hanover garage and extrapolated that into the 657 spaces that would be in use at the new garage. Pro forma B was 40% use of the 332 spaces, and there was a positive result of $6.1 million. Pro forma C showed a positive result of $3.2 million, and that was utilizing the 332 spaces 30% of the time, or 70% vacancy. And then regarding pro forma D, which I just reviewed with you, you'll see the positive result utilizing all costs and revenues associated with the project to be $15.2 million after the 20 years. The next page shows this in graph format, and it's pretty self-explanatory, and I won't go any further into it. Also, what I provided to the City Council and I wanted to provide to the public was, and you might be familiar with this because it was in the fiscal year 06 budget, the actual parking garage budget for fiscal year 06, the parking and transportation budget. Moving on to the next document that I provided the City Council. You will see the actual revenue for all parking violations, boot removals, summons, parking meter revenues, parking garage revenues, garage space leases, etc. And those the actual totaled $3.6 million. Now you'll notice that it was less than the budgeted amount for fiscal year 05. That is because that was the first year that we had increased the rates and we had made that as a projection. You'll notice that in FY06, we were a little bit more conservative on our projection when we did the budget, but from what the Finance Department is telling me in the Parking Division is that we expect to be to the good in that by $195,000 or total revenue of $3.7 million. Now, you'll note that in both of these instances, we show how much money is set aside for the parking fund, which was the previous attachment. And those are $1 million in fiscal year 05 and approximately $1.2 million in fiscal year 06. The next item that I provided City Council to you was walking distances from the proposed parking facility, because I know questions came up at the last meeting, about this being something that may not be useful to other businesses in the downtown. You'll see that if you take and look at the walking distances to get to Market Square from the new parking facility would be approximately 6.5 minutes. To get to Upper Congress Street, depending on where you are in the garage, would take approximately 6 minutes. So there are parking times in terms of, walking times for that parking garage. And finally, there is in your packet the complete report by Robert Crawford of Hospitality Resolutions, Inc. And this was a document that was requested under the right to know. We had questions relative to the proprietary information that was in this document, but Steve Griswold felt it was important to have full transparency on this matter, and he acquiesced and allowed us to release this information, and we did so. Again, we have on the website all this information that you have in front of you this evening. In addition, we have the joint development agreement in front of you. And, Your Honor, at this time, what I'd like to do is turn it back to you to open it up for comments.
Very good. We will open up the public hearing, and do I have any first-time speakers? Please come forward, give us your name and your address. Speak to it or simply to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council members. First of all, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a happy property tax-free New Year. No?
How about that?
As for the Conference Center parking garage, I support the $50 million bond. I've looked at the figures. I hope that council members have looked closer than I have. You have more resources at your fingertips than I do for any questions that might arise concerning figures. But I do take exception to a couple of things. First of all, council members saying that projects like these will lower our tax rate. I venture to say that if you looked at any of the projects that have gone on in Portsmouth, I don't think you'll see any project that has lowered our tax rate. And another thing, we cannot tie this project in to the sewer treatment plant. When you talk about a secondary treatment plant, I think you've got to know what you're talking about before you start talking. We have a secondary treatment plant in Portsmouth. We've had it for years and years and years, as long as I can remember, out at Pease. That is a secondary treatment plant. What is unique about Pease is that when Pease was built, or thereafter, the sewer lines and the stormwater drains were separated. You don't have fresh water going in to the secondary treatment plant out at Pease, because that would be disastrous for a secondary treatment plant. So to try and tie in a secondary treatment plant with this kind of a project just because of the added sewage that will be generated, I think you're barking up the wrong trees. You're talking about apples and oranges. Portsmouth is not ready for a secondary treatment plant. We cannot afford to put all that fresh water that runs through our sewer system into a secondary treatment plant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. First time around, please come forward. for, against, or simply two?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Sorrell and City Council members. My name is Jennifer Slade, and I own a business in downtown Portsmouth called Atretzi Fine Kitchen Accessories, located at 78 Market Street. I'm here in support of the bond resolution. I believe it's a good investment for the city and will have a positive economic impact to the city as well as downtown merchants. In addition, it will provide some much-needed parking relief. So for these reasons and more, I urge you to vote in favor of the bond resolution.
Thank you. Come right up. First-time speakers, don't be bashful.
Hi, my name is Kelly Whalen, and I live and work in Portsmouth. I live at 30 Willow Lane. I'm here tonight in support of the bond for the public parking. I support this because the city desperately needs additional parking when my families and friends come and visit me. I also think that the conference center and hotel will be a wonderful addition to the downtown merchants and restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you. First-time speakers, come forward, please.
Good evening. I'm Tom Neese, 419 Richards Avenue in Portsmouth. I'm a resident. I'd like to thank the city manager for doing Pro Forma D. I think it explains some things. There are some issues that I do still have some questions on. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask those questions now, Madam Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Go right ahead.
I noticed that the agreement signed with Harbor Corp under paragraph E says that the city is responsible for any costs with removing something in the area. I think it's water pipes. I don't know if there's any estimates of what those costs might be, but I think that's important in understanding what the revenues might be that return to the city. I think it's important to note that the way I read the agreement, it's not a certainty that in years 6 through 20 of the agreement that the parking revenues will increase automatically by 5% for the leased spaces in the conference center. And see, under some of the pro formas, that's a key part of why positive revenues are generated. So I think city councilors ought to keep that in mind. I like to point out that the budgeted operating costs for the High Hanover Street, if I calculated them correctly, come out to be about $460 per space, not the $300 per space that was assumed for the Pro Forma D. And my last question, I think, that I'm curious about is how much time the non-leased spaces are filled in the High Hanover garage. I suspect it's similar to the assumption in Pro Forma D, which is 30% of the time in the conference center. I think these issues are all important because, and I think Pro Forma D is important because I think they show that in reality, the conference, in spite of what's been published and what some people have said, it does not appear to me that the conference center parking garage is going to pay its own way. It's only going to be a benefit to the city if tied in with the conference center itself and if you consider the tax revenues from the conference center itself. And that raises the question of whether you should consider any other costs that may arise as a result of the conference center. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, first time around. Where does
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. My name is Jan Barker, and I am here this evening on behalf of my friend and colleague, Fred Coker, who regrets that he cannot be here in person, but wanted to share his thoughts with you. So with your permission, I'd like to read a letter he's written to you. The Honorable City Council, members of the City Council, please accept this letter of support for development of the city's Northern Tier Business District, and especially the development of a conference hotel facility and parking garage. My name is Fred Coker, and I am a resident of Portsmouth. My interest in this proposed development in Portsmouth is based not only on my residency in Portsmouth, but also as a former senior staff member to U.S. Senator Warren Rudman when I helped the city acquire federal funding for the Sheraton Hotel project, and also as a former city councilor and chairman of the Downtown Revitalization Committee of Concord, New Hampshire, where I led an effort to revitalize the downtown area of the capital city in the 1980s. That combination of experiences leads me to comment briefly on proposed development before you this evening. It's my understanding that this development will generate new tax revenues, create jobs, increase parking, replace conference business lost when Yokin's Conference Center was closed, and take advantage of a growing interest in Portsmouth as a tourist destination. Any economic development project that can achieve all those results without putting the city at risk is worth serious consideration. In addition, the proposed condominium residences for the downtown area achieve something that has become a lesson learned for communities undergoing revitalization. If you build living spaces into the downtown area, you also build in a demand for safe and clean streets, for good lighting, for services, and thus a healthy downtown. I'm on the board of a number of organizations in New Hampshire and New England that seek out locations for conferences and meetings. Portsmouth is growing as a desirable location because of its geographic location north of Boston, south of Portland, and east of Manchester, and because the downtown has become a superb walking and shopping experience. One of the New England groups to which I belong has held its annual meeting at the Sheraton Portsmouth 2 years in a row after holding them in places such as Cape Cod and the Berkshires. They draw some of the leading technology leaders in all of New England to this city. They prefer Portsmouth for their meeting. However, this conference is growing and will soon outgrow the Sheraton's current facilities. I strongly urge you to make the necessary decisions to allow for the development of the conference hotel facility and parking garage in the northern tier. It will be an economic plus for the city. Sincerely, Fred Coker, President, Coker & Company. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Angela Carter. I'm here tonight to urge you to support the $15 million bond resolution. As CFO for a real estate investment company on Deer Street, I regularly review, prepare, and analyze pro formas and projections. After reviewing these, I can say they were prepared with very conservative numbers and safe assumptions. For example, I see that the retail rental revenues were calculated using a $15 per square foot rate. We all know and recognize downtown rates as being closer to $30 per square foot. Secondly, the Finance Department very safely calculated revenues with no escalators. Most commercial leases include a 5% or greater escalator clause. Again, another example of a conservative calculation on assumptions. Lastly, there is no allowance for increases in parking rates. You can't tell me that over the next 20 years that 75 cents per hour won't go up. So again, in closing, these pro formas and projections are very conservative in nature, offer solid representations of minimum expectations, and I strongly urge you to support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First-time speakers?
Good evening. My name is Rich Coombs. I live at 100 Kane Street here in Portsmouth. I'd like to begin by thanking the City Council for allowing me this opportunity as a resident to weigh in on this important issue. I'd also like to thank the City Manager and the City staff for the work that they've done on this private-public partnership. The public benefits from this project are obvious. More city tax revenues, a stronger economic base, and of course more jobs. I know that tonight the focus is the bonding issue, so I won't go into details on those. I believe the issuance of this $15 million bond will not only be covered by the revenue generated by the city, but will actually create a surplus. The pro formas that I have reviewed seem very conservative in their assumption on revenue and expenses. I think it's realistic that the city will recognize a surplus of more than $20 million over 20 years. To that point, I would make one plea. I would ask the City Council to use that surplus for further infrastructure improvements for the City of Portsmouth. Specifically, improvements to the facade of the Market Street extension, the resulting increase of traffic on Maplewood Ave, and the appearance of the Route 1 bypass. We have a great city, and this project has the potential to make it even better. If we want to remain a great city, we need to continuously improve our infrastructure and I think this bond and this project will generate revenue that can be used for that purpose. Please vote for the bond tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Hi. Hi, I'm Jay McSherry. I'm a resident of Portsmouth, and I have several businesses in town, restaurants. I hope you vote for this tonight. It's a fantastic opportunity for us, and I hope it keeps moving along quickly. I also am on a board for SOS, Taste of the Nation, and I can tell you every year as a charity organization, we struggle to find a place large enough to have events in town. And with the Sheridan's Conference Center, it will also act as a center for charity events and such to raise more funds for specific charities. That's my short version. I hope you vote for it. Thank you.
First-time speakers, please come forward. No more first-time speakers. We're the second time around. Do I have any speakers? For, against, or simply to? Please come right up to the podium.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sorrell. And members of the council, my name is Tom Keene, and I represent Ocean Properties, whose corporate offices are located here in Portsmouth. First of all, I want to point out and make it very clear that Ocean Properties is not opposed to the development and the expansion of the Sheraton Hotel. There are many hotel projects and other developments in the area that Ocean Properties has seen be built with private funds, and for those projects there was never any objection. However, as one of Portsmouth's largest taxpayers, they oppose using their tax dollars to subsidize a competitor's project where no public assistance is necessary. Certainly, we all know that Portsmouth is not a community in need of public subsidies to entice real estate development. My client spent over $25 million rebuilding and refurbishing the Wentworth Hotel, all with their own money. The Hilton Garden was recently built with private funds, and there was no offer of public assistance. So why is the city providing public support to this hotel developer when it does not provide public support to any other hotel developer? And if the parking garage does in fact make money, as we've all heard tonight, then why is it necessary for the public to subsidize, own the hotel, the parking garage, all at a risk to the taxpayers? The city manager originally presented to the council 3 different pro formas, all of which show the parking garage either making money or breaking even. The newspaper today repeated that the parking garage will make money from day one. In fact, according to the paper, there will be a surplus of $5.6 million. If this is true, then the developer should build it, and the city manager should not put the taxpayers at risk. However, a quick review of the pro formas that were originally submitted shows that the pro formas did not take into account expenses. I note that tonight there was pro forma D that was provided to the council that did in fact take into expenses. But if you look at the pro formas that were provided to you previously, they showed a profit of approximately $24,000 in one instance and a break even in another instance. Certainly the expenses of operating that garage are going to be more than $24,000. We've asked the country's largest garage operator to analyze the pro formas, and you're going to receive a copy of that report tonight. And I think you'll be disappointed to learn that the cost to the taxpayers from the operation of this garage is going to be substantial. The pro forma does not take into account another very important item, And that's that after spending $24 million of taxpayers' money, including the interest that will be paid on the bond, the city also loses tax revenue. If the parking garage were developed by the Sheraton and part of the development, there would be a $17 million asset on the tax records from which the city would receive nearly $300,000 a year in real estate taxes. That just doesn't seem fair, because in this particular instance, what the developer is receiving is a parking garage to park all of its guests. They will have no property tax burden, and they'll have the ability to profit from the parking garage by reselling the spaces that it's leasing on a monthly basis. There are several other questions that remain to be answered and should be fully explained to the taxpayers before the council votes on this bond resolution. What happens if the garage is built and the economics change and the hotel is never expanded? That question remains unanswered. Where will everybody park during the construction period? The question also remains unanswered. And why don't the pro formas that you look at take into account that during the 2-year construction period, there will be very little revenue from the hotel, because there will be no hotel guest to support it? Before voting on the bond, the council must have sufficient information to assure that there will be a public benefit. The only benefit that I see here is that this particular hotel developer is receiving the equivalent of a $17 million equity contribution to his hotel property. There will be other people here tonight to speak to some of these issues. You'll receive a report from USA Parking, and Rich Aid will speak to you about the economics of the proposal. Also, Craig Seymour from RKG Associates will raise several questions which should be answered before any vote is taken on this bond proposal. The taxpayers have a right to have answers to all of these questions before you vote to subsidize a private developer. We believe development of the northern tier is very important and essential to this community. My client has been a large part of this community and will continue to be a large part of this community and a big contributor to this community. However, before you vote to publicly subsidize a parking garage, you have to be absolutely sure that there will be a public benefit and there will not be a substantial cost to the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the city clerk to read a letter into the record.
We received this letter from Simeon Jarvis of the Metro, and it reads, Dear Mr. Bohanko, I am sorry that I am unable to attend the meeting tonight for the proposed bond issue for the parking garage. I wanted to take a moment to share with you my thoughts because I fully support the city's plan to pursue this direction as soon as possible. I had served on the Economic Commission for the city years ago when the Griswold family was pursuing the idea of the Sheraton Hotel at its present site. Since that time, the city has undergone a tremendous change in the revitalization of the downtown area. Much has happened and will continue to do so, resulting in additional parking needs as a priority for the city. I feel that the time is now for this venture to take place to alleviate our community to the next level of where the city aspires to be. In closing, I know that support and decisions made here this evening will be extremely positive to ensure that this direction will gain full support from all. Sincerely, Simeon Jarvis.
Thank you. We're at second time around. Do I have any speakers?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Craig Seymour. I'm principal with RKG Associates. We're an economic, real estate, and planning consulting firm located here in the Seacoast. I've been asked by Ocean Properties to evaluate some of the information that's been provided to you and to the city on which you're going to make decisions that have a very long-term impact on the community. I've had a very short period of time.
Sir, did you give your address?
No, I didn't.
We need it for the record.
Okay. My address is 277 Mast Road in Durham, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Okay. I've had a very short period of time to analyze the information that's been provided to date, and with Pro Forma D, which is obviously a critical piece of this evaluation, just handed to me earlier, there's a lot of information in here that's based on a lot of assumptions that I believe need to be analyzed in a little bit more detail before you make the kind of long-term decisions that you need to make. I'd like to just touch on some of these just for your information purposes. First of all, the pro forma analysis A through C, which I was provided, indicate, based upon assumptions on how the current High Hanover garage is operating, it pretty much come out as a break-even. They're slightly positive or slightly negative. But they're also based upon several assumptions that I think just need to be analyzed and perhaps some sensitivity analysis done to see how those numbers might change. That includes using the costs associated, the operating costs, which were not included in Pro Formas A through C, which are running about $300,000 a year at the High Hanover garage. If those were added to the bottom lines that were in those first three scenarios, then you would be operating at a deficit, and you would need to subsidize the new garage even higher than that, to at least that tune and perhaps higher based upon the assumptions that go into the operating utilization and the pricing for the garage. Furthermore, the debt service assumptions that were made for the bond at current quite low rates of 4.5% and 6%. It's going to be at least 2 years before that bond gets issued, and rates are most likely to change. And the economists I speak to and what I listen to in the Wall Street Journal and elsewhere indicate that rates are probably going to go up. And the question comes up is, what is the impact of even small rate changes on that cash flow on which this project is based? Roughly speaking, and you have to do a more detailed calculation to get this exact, but I figure about a 1% rise in the interest rates on those bonds is about $150,000 a year in additional cash outflow that the city would experience. Again, depending upon the revenue that's generated, where that balance comes down between deficit and surplus is very critical. The pro formas also utilize a series of assumptions on parking utilization, on the supply and demand. The first pro forma looked at the High Street Hanover garage and applied that operating activity in terms of the utilization to the new garage. The question comes up, is that an accurate way of doing it? The later scenarios looked at a 30% utilization rate with the same parking structure, parking rates. And again, the question comes up, what does that mean relative to the city's other parking activities, or other lots that you have? Is this lot going to, or this garage going to impact utilization there and perhaps reduce revenues elsewhere? But not only in today's market, but looking down the road over the next 10 or 15 years, there's some other major economic development alternatives or projects coming up that are going to have parking questions involved with them, and how does this particular project interact with those? I'm thinking, as one example, is the McIntyre building. Obviously, a high-density redevelopment of that is going to include parking. That throws another piece of information into the analysis that needs to be looked at. So there's the current and the future economic development impacts of this decision that I think need to be looked at a little bit more closely. Just closing on my very quick analysis of Pro Forma D, it did show addition of operating expenses for the garage at an average of $300 per space. As a previous speaker pointed out, the current High Hanover garage is costing about $450 a year per space for its operating expenses, which would increase that number a little bit more. Pro Forma D, as far as I can tell, is also including as a revenue $750,000 a year in taxes from the conference center. The previous economic development analysis that was done for the project and the information provided by the city manager to you indicated the total taxes from the entire project at about $700,000 a year. And so my very quick read of this tonight indicates that effectively you're dedicating the taxes from the entire project, the hotel and the conference center, to support this parking garage. And the issue that raises in my mind as an economist is that if some of those other assumptions are off, and the cost of operating the garage are higher than the revenue that's brought in, and you require all of the debt service from the entire project to service or all of the tax revenue from the entire project to service the debt on it. Then you end up with a project that's not going to throw off future tax revenues to the city. And that is a question I think as you as council members need to consider and perhaps maybe do some more in-depth analysis and look at some other alternatives and test some of these scenarios a little bit further before you make your decision. Thank you.
Second time around, do I have any speakers?
Good evening. I'm Rich Aid. I'm the CFO of Ocean Properties.
But I have your address, please.
1000 Market Street, Richard Aid.
Who is he?
Richard Aid?
ADE.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
I have a handout that my assistant here, Patrick
Could you
Wolf.
give us your address, sir, for
1000
the
Market Street, Portsmouth.
Market Street?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. We have copies for the audience for anyone who'd like one. On behalf of Ocean Properties, we'd like to reiterate again that we are not opposed to an expansion of the Sheraton for the construction of a parking garage for its use. What we're primarily opposed to is the use of public funds to build private use garages. I think if you look at the handout I just passed out to you, our first issue deals with the use of the parking itself. It outlines what's required for the Sheraton today, what's going to be required for the Sheraton, for the Westin and the Convention Center and the related uses when it's built, and it comes to a total required parking for both projects of 1,031 spots. The issue is that with the existing Sheraton parking that will remain on its site and the new parking garage, you will only have 780 provided. There's going to be a shortage or a variance required of 251 spots just to build the project. The primary user for the garage will be the hotels that abut it. Our second issue is number 2. If the primary user are the hotels that abut it, and if it were on the tax rolls and built by the developer, it would create, in addition to the $750,000 that is suggested that will be created by real estate taxes from the hotel, if they were required to build the garage, there would be an additional $300,000 in taxes due every year. Over the life of the bond, assuming a rate of 3% increase in real estate taxes, you'll be forgiving $8 million in real estate taxes. $8 million in real estate taxes would not be paid because it is going to be a municipal garage, not a private garage. In number 3, I've taken the liberty of taking your projections that were given to me last time, A, B, and C, and I've provided them to the world's largest parking garage operator, Central Parking and USA Parking, and asked them to look at the projections. The first item they chose to highlight was the fact that in no case in A, B, and C were there any operating costs indicated. I then made a request to the city for your actual operating expenses for the High Hanover garage, because that instant situation would be the best indicator of how much it costs to operate a garage in the city of Portsmouth. They took those and interpolated them because this is a smaller garage than High Hanover, and their estimates are included within. In year 1, what was originally projected, I have not adjusted, by the way, in any time in the first projection, the revenues that the city manager projected for the garage. They remain exactly the same. The only thing we have added are the expenses in the same amount that you're incurring at your existing garage. I've also included pro forma A so you can see that those revenue projections are exactly the same as provided to us last time, I've also included a letter from USA Parking describing their view of the parking garage as well as the expenses associated with it. They've also included some concerns they have about the parking garage, its location, its fringe area of the city, not a lot of instant users nearby, the fact that the Portsmouth Herald is relocating. There are concerns about whether or not there are enough drivers to utilize the garage other than the hotel. If you look at the very first pro forma, which goes out 20 years, you can see that in year one, there's now a loss generated by the garage of $346,000. This assumes that this garage in year one can produce per spot revenue equal to the High Hanover garage. You'll have to decide for yourself, do you think a brand new garage next to the Sheraton and the Westin without any other real users nearby can do as well as your centrally located garage in the middle of town? If you look across the page, you'll see that over the life of this bond, utilizing the revenues that were given to us last time for the High Hanover garage, that you will lose approximately $4 million. $4 million of taxpayer money used to subsidize this garage. On pro forma 2, I asked USA Parking to estimate what they thought the revenue would be for this garage, considering its usage and its location. In year one, their estimate is that you will subsidize this garage in excess of $1 million. But over the life of the bond, you could spend as much as $18 million of city money to subsidize the private garage. I would venture to say at this point, considering that just tonight you were given information on expenses, a new Performer D, or perhaps just a day ago, that we were supplied with it just tonight for the very first time, that this is something that needs further analysis. I've also included a list of questions that you should ask yourself about the garage. Lastly, I'd like to point out, even on Pro Forma D, if you go to the Pro Forma D that was provided to you this evening, you'll note that the total revenues generated on this Pro Forma for this garage in the first year are $1,050,000. That's the city manager's number. It's right here on D. If you look at the expenses, there are $1,425,000. By looking solely at Pro Forma D, you can see that in the first year, this garage is going to lose $375,000 by your own projection. I've read in the newspaper, I've attended meetings, I've heard it repeatedly. This garage is self-supporting and will not cost the taxpayers any money. I think if you look at this closely, you'll see that you will be supporting this garage for years to come out of the general fund with taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're still at second time around. Do I have any speakers? Name and address, please.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. My name is Sean Tennant, and I own a business at 2800 Lafayette Road in Portsmouth. Ladies and gentlemen, I've lived in this area my whole life, along with my family, who's been here for many generations. And I can remember a time, well, when I was very young, and my family remembers far back, when Portsmouth really wasn't the tourist and shopping-friendly place that it is now. I won't say that it was a tough town, but it certainly had kind of a bit of a rough edge to it. Mayor Sorrell, I'm certain you can remember that time. I think this project would be a great boon for the entire Portsmouth region, the whole Seacoast area. And I also think it honors 30 years of effort by a host of people in this area to really bring back Portsmouth and revitalize the old buildings here and make it the tourism-friendly place that it is today, as well as a very business-friendly place. And finally, as a former airline manager for 18 years, I got to do a lot of international travel around the country and to some great international destinations. And I can tell you that, just from my experience, that cities that don't have proper meeting facilities for large groups, they lose that business to other cities. And I could certainly see Portsmouth losing business to places like Boston, Manchester. Portland has a convention center in the works if they ever get public financing for it. Lewiston, Maine even has a convention center in the works. And I think if for no other reason than competitiveness, this is a great project for the city. And also the city's own projections show that this should be a pretty good money maker for the city as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Second time around. Name and address, Mr.
Dick Ingram, 500 Market Street. I'm the president of the Greater Portsmouth Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and honorable members of the City Council. I think this is probably my fourth time coming before you to speak about this project, and I think that's indicative of the fact that we're here tonight at this phase of what has been a very thorough and well-attended process, not just in recent months, but over a number of years. We heard from the Economic Development Commission earlier tonight. Certainly there's been a lot of work by that body, members of this council, the city manager, others, including all of the citizens who have weighed in on one side or another on this issue. And I think we have all benefited from the fact that there are the hard questions being answered and asked, and the debate that we're having is taking place. From our point of view at the Chamber and on behalf of our members that particularly in the downtown business community, we're very eager to see something happen with the conference center proposal. It fits very well into all of the work that has been done to develop plans for the rebirth, if you will, of the northern tier. Portsmouth is the right place for a facility like this, not just for the city itself, but for the region. This is where it belongs, and I hope as you complete your due diligence tonight and into the future, if that's necessary, that we will indeed see a conference center in Portsmouth. This community needs it. The business community will benefit from a facility like that. And I thank you for your work and your attention to the fiduciary questions that are yours as counselors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Second time around.
Madam Mayor, my name is Malcolm McNeil. I'm an attorney with an office at 180 Locust Street in Dover, New Hampshire, and I represent Harbor Corp. Although after looking at the city's numbers, those numbers really speak for themselves and have been well analyzed, this vote tonight cannot be considered in purely the isolation of those numbers. You must consider the transparent public process that preceded this meeting tonight and the substantive public benefit that will be supported by a favorable vote on this proposal. Secondly, I have a duty to give context to any opposition being advanced by Ocean Properties, as evidenced by past and present actions in trying to stifle legitimate competition in Portsmouth and in other places. This is not about what is best for Ocean Properties. This is about what is best for the city of Portsmouth. This vote has been preceded by a long and totally transparent public process. The memorandum of understanding was signed on November 30th, 2004, and was authorized by the council after extensive public discussion. That document was preceded by the Northern Tier study of November of 1998, almost 7 years ago, and also by an economic impact analysis of applied economic research in 2004, which showed benefits that transcended any tax parking revenues and revenues from the hotel of between $14 and $17 million. Additionally, the city did a comprehensive master plan that was completed in March of 2005 of this year. The master plan was commended in terms of it being inclusive of many segments of the community. In the master plan, land use goal number one was this: to develop the Northern Tier. There was a public hearing and extensive comment regarding the joint development agreement in November of this year. There were various questions raised with regard to the agreement. There was public discussion here about the agreement, which provided the roadmap, if you will, for the development of this project. The city was very careful to protect itself in that agreement with regard to some of the issues raised by Ocean Properties. What if the hotel didn't get built? What if the parking garage was not built? What if there were other difficulties with regard to the project? Attorney Sullivan and the city manager were very careful to protect the city on those issues, and I'm sure you wouldn't have voted for it unless you felt those issues were addressed. All of the financial information that was part and parcel of the consideration of the joint development agreement and ultimately this bond issue have been reviewed by the city's own consultants. Those consultants were not our consultants, namely Harbor Corp. Those were consultants retained by the city to protect the city's interests. They were to look at this from the city's perspective, not Harbor Corp's, in terms of whether it worked for the city. We gave up any proprietary interest in those consulting reports so that there would be full, transparent disclosure to you with regard to this project, and that's part of your record. And those results and findings are clear. The head of your Economic Development Committee has stood up here many times to support not only development in the Northern Tier, but this project specifically in terms of its appropriateness. After the passage of the joint development agreement in November, both parties signed the agreement as part of a collective effort to go forward with this project. 2 weeks ago, there was the first reading of the bond issue. All of the financial information was passed out to everyone who was here, and a commitment was made by the city to make it forthcoming and available to anyone who wanted to see it, and the city has made good on that promise. Once again, those financials were reviewed by the city's consultant and by the city's bonding expert in terms of their validity, and they received their approval with regard to the protection of the city's interests and the ultimate conclusions contained in the bonding resolution, as well as the issues raised as to the efficacy of this project to produce the proposed returns. This information has also been on the website and subject also to a right-to-know request, a truly expansive right-to-know request by Ocean Properties, which has produced hundreds of pages of documents that has left Ocean Properties only with the arguments that they've made tonight. In terms of transparency, not to be trite, in television terms, this is high definition. Everything has been out there. Nothing has been held back. We have made no effort on the part of Harbor Corps to hold back any information with regard to this project. Although these numbers speak for themselves and have been extensively studied by the city's experts, the issues are larger than the garage being cost neutral or profitable. There is a public need and desire for this facility. Portsmouth needs it. Yokins is here no longer. There's a spot, a place, a tried and true developer who's done this before, who can do this project and do it well, just as he has in the past. Even if the garage numbers were marginal, which they are not, the project is supported by $750,000 in taxes from this particular development, $14 to $17 million in spin-off spending that has been documented and reviewed by your experts. People coming into town supporting the other people who have gotten up this evening and spoken in favor of this project. Now, what is being asked of you is very different. What I asked the City Council of Dover last Wednesday with regard to the development of the Liberty Mutual project there, where the City of Dover provided $1.9 million in taxpayer revenues for off-site improvements for that project to spur development, to spur employment, to spur jobs and tax revenues. As opposed to this project, there's no toll gate on that road. There are no revenues produced by that road. This was an endeavor by a city to provide for a need. You are in the fortunate position of providing for that need in a cost-sensitive way. Now let's talk about the legitimacy of some of the arguments that you've heard from Ocean Properties. Ocean Properties operates the Marriott Courtyard, the Residence Inn at Pease, and the Wentworth Hotels. They have actively and aggressively during the last 5 years to squelch opposition by other competing hotels in this community. If you read the Portsmouth Herald tonight, you could read the article about the resistance that has been offered by Ocean Properties to the Ramsey Hotel during the last 5 years. That continues. 2 years ago, when I was proposing a hotel, a Hilton Hotel on Portsmouth Boulevard, which finally is now being built, and the Ramsey Hotel was going forward, there was this headline in the Portsmouth Herald on February 23, 2003. It says, "Group opposes hotel plans at every turn." And those were the two hotels that were being proposed, and the group that we were talking about was Ocean Properties. In that article at that time, one of the named plaintiffs in the lawsuit brought by Ocean Properties, a guy named Boscia, who has become the most famous land use case in New Hampshire, was called by the newspaper, and he was surprised to learn that he was identified as the first petitioner in this case. He said, "I am. Keene and Taylor called me up and asked if I was opposed to the project. I told them I was. I never heard from them again. Taylor and Keene did not represent me." He went on to say, even though he supports the lawsuit to prevent the 100-room hotel, Boscia said Keene is working to help his clients monopolize the hotel business. This is a plaintiff in that part of the city rather than protect the interests of Atlantic Heights homeowners. He said they are opposing this hotel because it interferes with their business. As part of the litigation in that case, there was a deposition where Mr. Ailes, who spoke here tonight, was asked, "Do you believe that a hotel on Mr. Ramsey's property would be in competition with the Marriott?" He said, "No." He said, "Why does the Marriott view it as, who does the Marriott view as its competition in the city of Portsmouth?" The answer in the deposition, probably the Sheraton. Anyone else? Not necessarily. Why the Sheraton as opposed to some of the others? Brand awareness. What do you mean by brand awareness? Customers being aware that the brand has commercial standards. Then shortly thereafter, I was personally involved in the development of the proposed Hilton Hotel off of Portsmouth Boulevard. Mr. Keene stood up at the first hearing on this case and said, just what he said to you tonight. We're not opposed to that project. Then he sued us. And then we were in litigation for the next year and a half, despite the fact they were not in opposition to the project. That litigation ended as it should have. When that case was appealed to the New Hampshire Supreme Court by Ocean Properties, the Supreme Court said that this case shouldn't even have been brought in the first instance because the parties did not have standing to bring it. But the end was achieved because our project was delayed for a year and a half. Now, since that litigation, I think it's interesting to note that I have two letters to read to you. One is from Attorney Griffin, who represents Mr. Ramsey. He says, I am writing on behalf of my client, Raymond Ramsey, who has a pending matter before the Board of Adjustment concerning his proposal to construct a 100-room hotel at the intersection of Kearsarge Way and Market Street, to indicate that he supports the proposed bonding for construction of the garage required for the Sheridan expansion, as he believes that the Sheridan expansion and conference center, including the garage, will be of benefit to the community, and that is the responsibility of civic-minded businessmen to lend their support to projects that will benefit the community. And then as to the receiving parties in the litigation on Portsmouth Boulevard that I represented, to the Portsmouth City Council from Mark Stebbins, the principal of that firm, our company has recently started construction on the 108-room Hilton Homeward Suites of Portsmouth Boulevard. I am writing to let you know that we are 100% in favor of the new hotel conference center being proposed in downtown Portsmouth across from the Sheridan. We feel this will not only be good for the city financially, but it will add a new vibrancy and excitement to Portsmouth that will help attract more customers to our hotel as well. Now, as this objection to what is happening in Portsmouth is going forward, I think it's important for you to know what Ocean Properties is doing in other parts of the country. I'm reading to you an article from the Miami Herald of September 28th of this year with regard to Ocean Properties' proposed development of a hotel with city support in Hollywood, Florida. And I'm going to read you verbatim from the newspaper article. It first says, Alan Koslow, Ocean Properties attorney, said the group initially asked for millions of dollars in incentives. He went on to say, it was very difficult in healthy negotiations. There was a lot of give and take, he said. He said the project grew because we wanted to build to the future Hollywood and create Central Beach as a destination point. The city manager went on to say that the negotiations went on for a period of time. The article went on to say this: developers are expected to sign an 89-year lease with the city and would contribute to the Community Redevelopment Agency a portion of the hotel's revenues and profits from leasing space. The project would generate a total of about $840,000 for the Beach Community Redevelopment Agency annually once it becomes on the tax rolls. The city has agreed to pay for construction of a 1,600-space parking garage and will pay for most infrastructure improvements for the 6-acre project. They will also build a public stage for outdoor concerts and events. So it might be reasonable to say that in terms of credibility and legitimacy, there is also an element of hypocrisy that transcends these discussions. Then why Harbor Corp? And what's going to happen if you approve this project? If you approve this project, you will verify the findings of your own experts. You will verify the financial calculation, not of hired people that have come in here to testify on behalf of someone who acknowledges that they compete against the entity that you are trying to work with, but rather your own people that are protecting you. But even after tonight, I will make you a promise that this debate will not be over, because this particular applicant has to continue to operate in the public forums of this city. We have to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for some relief. We've already started the process before the HDC, Historic District Commission, and we have to go before the Planning Board. I surmise that representatives of Ocean Properties, despite the fact they're not against this project, will probably be there. Now, in terms of Councilor Whitehouse's comments with regard to infrastructure, I'd like to make it very clear that we fully anticipate that during the land use components of this process, we will have to demonstrate that infrastructure exists that will support and provide for this project without unduly taxing the infrastructure of this community. If we cannot prevail on this issue, we cannot prevail on our permits. That, to me, is not a bonding issue, it's a land use issue, but we're fully prepared to address those issues and intend to. Finally, and thank you for the time. You usually cut me off sooner, Mayor, and I appreciate the time. And I recognize this is your last meeting, so maybe it's a little bit looser, but the bottom line here, Harbor Corp has a proven track record. They've been a good citizen here. They've worked out in the open to try and develop a relationship with you with regard to these agreements. All the documents, we have held nothing back. We've had a proven track record for the time that the hotel has been there. We are in a position to move this project forward better than anyone else, and we have the experience and the track record to show it. We believe both the process and the process particularly and the substance of this proposal will play a critical part in the continued commercial vitality of the city, and we wish to be a part of it. Thank you.
Do I have any second-time speakers that have not spoken before?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, honorable councilors. My name is Shara Young. I'm a property owner at 33 Deer Street and have been a Seacoast resident for all but 4 years of my life. And many of you know me as the general manager of the Sheraton Harborside, which I will give as my address since that is where I spend most of my time, 250 Market Street. I speak before you tonight to ask for your support on the presented bond resolution. I ask on behalf of my staff and employees of the Sheraton who embrace the planned Westin Hotel and Conference Center and the relationship it will have with the Sheraton. Together we will bring new business to Portsmouth from visitors and groups who do not presently include Portsmouth in their consideration process due to the lack of facilities and the size that will be offered at the proposed Westin. We are excited not only about the opportunities for growth that it will present to us and our families personally, but to the growth that it offers to Portsmouth as a community. The staff of the Sheraton has a long-standing reputation for community support and involvement that I know you are aware of, and we see great opportunities for this to grow as we grow and expand our team. We recognize the very large shoes that we will need to fill in following in the steps of the McLeod family and Yokins, but I assure you we are ready for this challenge. And I have to add to my written comments that I'm somewhat confused by the talking out of both sides of Mr. Aide, that on the one hand there's not enough parking, and on the other side there's an excess of demand for parking, and that the assumption that for a higher parking demand that there is an increased revenue to go along with it. It just doesn't register for me. I've had the benefit to review and discuss with many in our community the pro formas. I saw pro forma D today on the website, and I was happy to share that with people and discuss it. I am confident that the city manager and the staff of the finance department have provided accurate and correct projections. I hope you see this too, and will vote in support of the bond tonight so that the public parking garage may move a step closer to reality for all of us. Thank you.
Second time around, before we go to the, no, have you spoke before, sir? Well, as a gentleman got up ahead of you, and then you can come up after him. Come right up, sir.
First time?
First time, yeah.
My name is Steve Barndollar, and I am a resident 160 Middle Street and own a business in Portsmouth. I've listened to the presentation somewhat, and I confess I haven't done my homework on all of the operating agreement. I've certainly read, but not a lot of the marketing studies. I only would question somewhat blatantly the location in terms of the number of spaces being generated by this project of $16 million, $15 million possible bonding. You're being asked to vote on, plus another $800,000 in UDAC loans. The Northern Tier is going to get developed, I'm sure, by private money, and the Sheraton Conference Center is an exciting project, and the hotel certainly speaks for itself, and the management of the hotel speaks for themselves. At $27,000 a space, if these numbers come in as projected, it sounds like a tremendous amount of money for a somewhat limited availability of space to the city. And I do question, I have no extra time, but I do question the revenue projections. The current garage at Hanover Street generates $1,286 per space per year currently. Obviously, this isn't taking into account any numbers for inflation. My only main concern as a businessman is the city's being asked a partnership in a private project. There are considerations, things could happen in the operating agreement, soft costs, sewage infrastructure costs that will be covered. The city will be asked to somewhat pay for, or possibly pay for under the bonds and the financing. And I would just ask that you consider asking the developers, Mr. Griswold, corporately, and if necessary personally, to guarantee any shortfall in the project. If there's any, the revenue projections are based on market studies. We've heard different testimony from both sides of the aisle. You really don't know over 10, 15, 20 years what those projections are going to mean. You don't know what cost overruns on the project are going to mean. It's a good private project. If it's good for the developer, then it should be good for the city, and it should be revenue tax neutral, as we've said. So I would simply have you consider that. If it is going to be a partnership and the city has to be involved in developing the garage, which will have other uses for it in that area, it should truly be neutral to the taxpayer. Thank you.
Second time around, come up, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Chris Howard. I'm with the law firm of Pierce Atwood. We represent Ocean Properties. We have an office at One International Place in the Pease Trade Port. My practice focuses on municipal finance, and I only have some brief comments this evening. And I want to start with focusing on the issue at hand. Mr. McNeil's comments included a number of direct references to and attacks on Ocean Properties, discussion of projects in Florida. Ocean Properties is not the issue here this evening. Whether you like Ocean Properties, whether you like the Sheraton, whether you love them both, I mean, that's really not the issue. The issue here this evening is whether or not this is a bond issue that you're going to approve and whether or not it serves a public benefit. And you know, Ocean Properties' issue here this evening is not, their position here this evening is not that you should vote this down. Their position here this evening is that there's enormous disparity in these numbers. The numbers that Rich Aid provided is an analysis of pro formas that were provided at the first reading. The second the pro forma D, which is the iteration put out this evening, was only received this evening as this proceeding got underway. There's tremendous disparity in the numbers between the analysis that he has done and nationally recognized consultants have done on his behalf and the numbers that have been provided by Mr. Bohanko and his staff. So all that Ocean Properties is asking is that you take the time to look at those disparities, to analyze and understand why those differences exist, and to come to an appropriate conclusion. They're simply suggesting that the speed with which this has occurred, the speed with which these numbers have been put forward, they're enormously complicated, and they really take time to understand and penetrate in order to make a good decision. And that's really what Ocean Properties is asking for, is a good decision. But good decision-making takes time. These are long-term decisions. Once this decision is made, the bond issue is authorized, you need to live with that throughout its life. Taking weeks, even taking months, to understand the economics of this project and understand why the disparity in the numbers exist is critically important to making an appropriate decision. You know, the process has not been as easy or as transparent as has been suggested in Mr. McNeil's comments. I mean, obviously information's only been provided this evening. Good decision-making isn't based on that type of speed in making this kind of decision. We'd like to have the opportunity to look at those numbers, to talk with you about it, to talk publicly about it. Filing a right-to-know request to get financial information from the city, that's not something that we enjoy doing. It's something that we had to do in order to get the appropriate information. So I would suggest to you that really what this is about, it's not about Ocean Properties. Ocean Properties is not opposed to every hospitality project in the city of Portsmouth. They didn't oppose the Hilton Garden Inn project. It's about this particular project. It's about this parking garage. It's not about the conference center. It's not about the hotel. It's about the parking garage. And it's about whether or not this parking garage is going to place a burden on the taxpayers of the city of Portsmouth. And it's about whether this parking garage and the numbers that have been provided this evening are accurate or not accurate, and you're taking the time to really look at that issue critically and come to a good conclusion. Thank you very much.
Are there any other speakers out there that have not spoken before? Okay, fine. Because we'll be moving to third and final time around.
Great.
Okay.
My name is Nathan Tennant of 33 Deer Street. I'm a principal at Calypso Communications. Several weeks ago, when you went about approving the agreement between yourself and Harbor Corp, I presented a petition of over 50 businesses, which have grown to almost 60 now. And overwhelmingly, when I went around and signed these businesses up in support of the new conference center and hotel, overwhelmingly the response I received from businesses was, "Isn't this done yet? When's it going to get done?" This process, as we've heard, has been going on for a considerable amount of time. As we heard earlier in the evening from the tax consultant, the city has been very judicious in its finances, and it's evident that the city manager and his staff have done an excellent job of managing the city finances. And there's no reason to think that they wouldn't do otherwise with this project and other similar projects. So I would just like to present this petition again to the council. Again, this petition is in support of the proposed conference center and hotel. And I'd just like to read out a couple of the businesses that are on this petition, because they're businesses that have been in Portsmouth for a considerable amount of time. They include Stuart Shane's, the Portsmouth Brewery, Tugboat Alley, Celtic Crossing, iOS, which is a number of businesses all in one building, Hatchling Studios, the Rosa, which is probably, I would say, one of the oldest existing businesses in town, Lindbergh's Crossing, and others that you will recognize on this list. So again, I'd like to bring this to the council.
Thank you, sir. First time speakers, come right up. Name and address.
Sure. Paul Young from PK Port Properties, 33 Deer Street, Portsmouth. First, if I could, I'd like to read a brief statement from Lisa DiStefano, who was coming tonight but couldn't come because of a family reason. To the Honorable Mayor and Portsmouth City Council, I have asked Paul Young to read this on my behalf, and I am unable to attend the support meeting this evening. As a lifelong resident of the city, as well as a business owner, I want to state my full support for the development of the proposal for a public-private partnership of the parking facility. I believe the city and Harbor Corp should be commended for all the efforts in putting together a plan that has tremendous public benefit. The future of the Northern Tier development will bring life back to an area that has been lacking the vitality that was present when my family moved here from Italy and was sadly lost in urban renewal. It is an exciting time to be able to witness the energies of many, to initiate growth and the development that supports the numerous studies that have been done, and to see them come to fruition. I am hoping the council supports this bond resolution regarding Lisa DiStefano. And I know the hour's late, but I'd like to make a couple of quick points myself. I would just say that if the council were to run themselves by the standard that Ocean National is asking you to do, if you were to follow their recommendations, to ignore all the work of your city staff, all the recommendations of your city staff, the recommendations of your outside counsel and experts on any bonding resolution, I would say that we'd probably still be sending our kids to a one-room schoolhouse. We would never bond. I used to be in the development business, and to say that they're not opposed to the property, they're undergoing a classic delay and conquer. They're trying to get you to say, well, we haven't done enough study on this, even though this began in 1998. To follow that recommendation would set a bad precedent for not only for this bond issue, but for future bond issues. That's why you have expert staff. That's why you hire expert consultants to follow the recommendations, to make decisions on your own based upon those recommendations. Anyone can come here and bring experts. I would wonder, having heard about the Florida parking situation where you have a city paying completely for one of their parking garages with city taxes, I wonder if they would have USA Parking come and do an analysis of that project in terms of the taxpayers. I didn't see them do that in Florida, or maybe they'll do that. But I would just say that that standard is, for any city, a standard that can't be followed. You have to follow the recommendations of your staff. When we heard earlier tonight, I forgot the fellow's name, the expert talking about the fiscal condition of the city. And what did he say? He said revenues are growing quickly, and you're in a very positive fiscal position. I would say that's because you have, in the past, followed the recommendations of your city manager and your city staff and the recommendations of outside experts, which has put the city in a very healthy position. And so I would hope that you would do that again tonight and support the bond resolution. Thank you.
Third and final time. Do I have any speakers? Hello, Kevin.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Councilors. I'll only give about a half hour. Thank you. I hear a lot of talk about this being a subsidized project, and I don't see it as that. I don't see this project as, this garage as any different than the High Hanover garage. When that was built, how many of those spaces were leased out to businesses? Now there's a plethora of spaces in that are leased out. The difference here is we know how many spaces are going to be leased out, so we know about a positive cash flow as far as that's concerned, where we didn't know that on High Hanover. There are never any guarantees when you get into a project like this. The pro formas are all assumptions. Anytime you try to establish a new business, this is what you do. You do pro formas, and it's based on assumptions. Therefore, there are no guarantees. But there are a couple of guarantees with this project that I can guarantee for you. If you don't go forward with it, there will be no convention center. And if you don't go forward with it, we won't be allowed to bring some quality area and regional functions to the city so that people can enjoy. So those are words that I would leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We miss you. You know that.
I forgot to say, Mayor, I'm the former owner of Yoakham's.
That's a joke that goes way back. Do I have any third and final time speakers before I close?
Oh,
Getting old, Steve.
I know. So. I was a lot younger when we did the first deal. Are we having fun yet? I can't tell you how warm and fuzzy it feels to know that Ocean Properties supports my project and they're in the boat with me. I'm sure I'll look behind me and they'll be bailing. All right. But in any case, you know, I actually had hoped they were here to volunteer for that parade situation, but I guess not. My thoughts are going to be pretty simple. I am honored to be in an agreement with you speaking here this evening. I haven't been able to say that that's been our position until now. We were able to execute an agreement based on your vote that frankly already addressed some of the issues that have been brought forward by what is obviously a competitor at this point. And you know, it's I guess a pleasure for me to watch the process under which my partners now in this agreement go about their decision making. The openness, the honesty, the time frames that have been involved. We talked about, you know, actually we've been in this since 1998. That's brought us to this next step tonight. And although I hear my competitors speak about numbers and in many ways trying to be confusing, I guess, and I have experts and I can trot them up and we can get into this million and that million, but one of the reasons I'm in this partnership is because I trust you people. I trust the city manager. I trusted the process, as I did many years ago, that brought your consultants on board I listened to what they had to say. I acted on things that they had to say. I acted on things your city manager had to say, and that led me to sign a binding agreement with you folks. I'm looking forward to working in that agreement with you. So while I disagree wholeheartedly with many of the numbers thrown out on this side, it's not really material, in all honesty. It's what your numbers are, and your consultants, and the people who advise this city in this agreement. So, yeah, I think it's an appropriate partnership. I think we're not going to use one single dime of real estate taxes that are getting paid by people today to make this project happen. I think I'm building a conference center that's a whole bunch bigger than a process of just building a hotel would allow for. That's why there's some public assistance here, as has been noted in a couple of other projects that you all are involved with, Ocean Properties. I think, anyway, that it's a pretty low impact on services. The biggest one we ought to worry about is expansion of schools. Right? We all know what that part of your budget is. Pretty low impact on what it's going to cost this city budget on schools. Talk about infrastructure, fire, police, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, right, water. Typically, we try to be careful that we're not expanding those services to outlying areas of a city. And Harold's properly, Councilor Whitehouse, has properly brought forward some questions. I think City Manager Bohenko has responded to some of those questions. And I can only add that I'm going to be pleased that some of the real estate taxes that are going to be generated by my specific development and by the many, many people who will make other investments, some of which you heard speak tonight, who are also going to generate new real estate taxes, to give you something to be able to attack these issues with. I assure you, and I think the city manager believes in coming to you, it's not going to be paid toward parking garages. But in any case. So, we've talked about the T-bolt studies, the spend and the re-spend, the millions of dollars of expenditure being brought by getting this done. You've heard testimony about meetings and what we hope to, bring here. Rather than go on and on, you've heard some of these things before. I've testified to it before. And I guess I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to watch my partners complete their part of an ongoing partnership that we now have. I will appreciate your vote in that regard.
Third and last time, do I have any other speakers? Closed.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to suspend the rules so that we can take up 2-1 under the city managers.
Second. If that's a second, if that's what.
You mean
That would be the
8B?
resolution.
Item 8B,
8B.
where we would take action.
I'll second that motion. And you seconded it, okay. Discussion?
We're voting on the resolution.
No.
Yeah.
And you're voting on the suspension of the rules.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll have Kelly read it.
Move to suspend the rules in order to take up item 8B under the city council agenda, which is the adoption of the resolution.
We have our second. Discussion? John?
Suspend the rules.
I would like to give you,
Huh?
this is
We're
suspension.
suspending the rules.
Oh,
Just move the question.
okay, move the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to make the motion. I make the motion that we, I'm going to read it right, that the city council authorize the city manager to bond the $15 million for the parking garage.
Do I get a second?
Second.
I'd like to speak to my motion, please.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I find it insulting that Ocean Property would come to these chambers tonight to speak to us as if we were a group of people who don't do their homework. I resent them knocking our city staff that they has been working on this issue for a long time, putting doubts into people's minds that our city manager doesn't give us the correct information. There are many private public ventures around the state. There has been very many, I say that, many meetings about this parking garage. And I ask where you people have been until tonight. I think this project is great for the city of Portsmouth, and I hope that every council member will vote for this bond issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Discussion? Down there, John?
Well, my impression this evening, after having followed this whole issue from day one, which was a number of years ago, to have a group come in here tonight concerned with our financial welfare at the last moment. The action, if it were successful, would have been to prevent us from moving ahead with a well-defined decision that took an awful long time to get there. And if that were possible to stop it, it would then create an extended time to try to provide for the business community, for the working public, and for the tax rates and tax base in the city that we have estimated is possible with the plan that has been developed. So all of this speaks to me as a desperate attempt to stop what they recognize as a very good thing for the city of Portsmouth.
Councilor St. Laurent?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm offended at what's being said right now. These people are taxpayers in the city of Portsmouth. Any taxpayer, and I don't care how offensive they might come out, if they have something against the project, they have a right to discuss it if they're paying taxes in the city of Portsmouth. I mean, I don't like to see a tax going on in this council chambers at all, from either side. If they have something to bring up that may give me a different idea, I don't think we should be attacking them. I'm offended by what I'm hearing, because these people are taxpayers. They have been a right to say what they want to say, and so do these people. So right now, I'm not going to speak on the subject, but I will come back. But right now, I'm offended about hearing about a taxpayer coming in here and being attacked.
Very good. Anyone else? Harold?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. I realize that the burden upon a wastewater treatment plant that could occur in the future relies on the land regulatory boards and their decisions. There's nobody in this room that realizes the importance of the three land regulatory boards, the Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, and the HDC. But I can't help but think, and I'm going to mention it once more, that looking down the road, after this 657 space this garage is built, and the 1,000-room conference center, 1,000-space conference center, and the 7,400 square foot retail in the base of the garage. Also, the 200-plus hotel that's being proposed on that same parcel. Plus, let's look at Market Street on the corner of Kearsarge Way. That property will most likely be developed with 200-plus hotel room. Plus the entrance to Osprey Landing, another 200-plus hotel room. And plus Harbor Gardens, which is underway now, and the condos, which is mostly completed. What burden is that going to have on our Deer Street pumping station, our Mechanic Street pumping station, and finally over to our wastewater treatment plant? And when I say a secondary plant, I don't mean another complete wastewater treatment plant. I'm referring to from going to a primary system to a secondary system, which is very important in many communities. And that's all I've got to say, and I want this to be part of the record, and I hope I don't have to say in a few years, looking back on this, when problems occur, well, I told you so. Why did we nip this in the bud at an early stage at the $15 million bonding for the garage? And that's how I feel.
Assistant Mayor Grasso?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I would like to say that I admire Ocean Property a great deal for what they've done to the Wentworth. We all appreciate the restoration of that building back to the beautiful building that it is today and the historical importance of it. And I'm very, very proud that they were able to do that. I support this bonding because I think that it is a proven partnership that we've had with the Sheridan in the past. The City Council has been working on this for a long time. We've been given information on this for a long time. Performa D was given to us on Thursday so that we've had a few days to look it over. I believe that the Economic Development Commission has worked very hard for a long time on this issue also. And I think that to go forward with it now would be a very positive step for the city. I do think, though, we should separate the water and sewer needs from the bonding for the garage. I think when the time comes to do something about the water and sewer, that will be done through a different funding mechanism, and it will not be, it will, I think, be paid for through the enterprise fund rather than on the general tax revenue. So I hope that the rest of the council would be supportive of passing this vote tonight. Thanks.
Anyone else? Yes, the Councilor Farini.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to say that I, like Councilor Hines, have been involved with observing this project, beginning with the Northern Tier study back in 1998, as I served on the Economic Development Commission at that time. And as the long process has come forward, I remain, at this point in time, persuaded, notwithstanding the efforts of all concerned, that this is in the best interest of the city. And so I will be supporting the motion. I do think, even if it gets a little contentious at times, it's a good thing to have all this information presented to us. And I still feel that the work that we have done, the due diligence that we have undertaken is appropriate, and I support the project, and I intend to vote for it this evening.
Yes, I almost called you Mayor, Steve.
Give me a couple of weeks, huh?
Next week.
That's right. Pardon my hacking cough. Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, a few members of the community over the last week or so, I think some in written form, some have called, have expressed an interest in having certain expenditures that maybe were not explicitly part of some of the prior pro formas be included in the latest one. I wasn't kidding about the cough. Pro forma D. And I appreciate that because I do think it helps inform the discussion. It certainly helped inform my questions to the city manager, who by now is probably annoyed at those questions. But they're important questions, and I think it clarifies it in a positive way. I supported the project before and continue to after that additional information. I would say that one of many signs that you're probably about right in terms of making a decision is when people disagree with you from both your right and your left. This evening is no exception. There have been folks this evening who've said that the problem may be that it generates too much parking for the demand. And then I've done some other folks, one or two others, have said the problem is there won't be enough parking. That means that perhaps the parking is not too far from, the estimates are not too far from what reality will show. We've had some folks even this evening. In fact, I would argue some of the same person making both sides of the argument that we should not use High Hanover parking lot revenue because it may not be accurate, but that we certainly should use High Hanover expenditure information because that is accurate. I'd like to use that information, any other information I can get my hands on before making an informed decision. That's why I appreciate the information that's been given by all sides tonight. And it's with that information in mind that the three questions that I always think you need to answer for this sort of admittedly serious decision: does it improve in terms of economic development? What does it do in terms of our parking situation? and the financing, which is primarily what we're talking about tonight. Can you answer all three of those questions in the affirmative? I could before tonight. I appreciate the information. I can at the end of the night.
Thanks, Steve. Any others before Carol and Bill? Ned? No?
Nothing to add, Your Honor.
Nothing to add. Okay, very good. Harold?
Yes, a question to our city manager, please. All right.
Yes, John?
I see, John, that in the agreement we're giving away about 18,400 square feet of properties in Russell Street, this is city properties, to reconfigure the entrance onto Market Street, Deer Street, I mean. I realize this is to make a safer entrance in that area onto Russell from Deer, but who will be responsible for plowing and maintenance of that street now?
The street would remain in its relocated location. The street would remain a city street.
Would? And the only air rights we're giving is the enclosure connecting the new hotel with the old hotel, right?
Right, and that, of course, would remain to be done in the future.
Yeah. Now, I realize that this is a tremendous public benefit to the community, and I'll be supporting it, but I do have concerns, as I stated before, and I hope the record states of my concerns.
Bill?
Thank you. Okay, the question came up a few times tonight. How does it benefit the taxpayer? There's been a lot put into this project. A lot of figures are here. It's hard to absorb a lot of these figures. It takes time. I'm not sure whether we maybe should take a little bit more time to absorb, maybe meet and talk about these figures. Of course, I won't be here anyway. So, but maybe the new council might do that. But anyway, question to the city manager that I've heard come up tonight is, may I, Your Honor?
Sure, John?
The 700 to 750,000 in taxes that would be coming in on the project, will that money be used toward the garage? Toward how expenditures for the garage? In all of these figures that I'm seeing here, is that $700,000 a year included in the garage?
If I might, Your Honor. I'd have to answer that question, I'm going to have to go back a little bit to about 3 or 4 years ago when the public, and I would refer to the attachment that I provided you on total parking revenue. Approximately 4 years ago, the city's parking services were all decentralized, if you recall. And approximately 4 years ago, the city council, through its budget deliberations, consolidated all our parking services, the collections, the enforcement, the maintenance, into one budget that was entitled a parking transportation fund. In addition, we had our mass transportation included in that as well. If you look at the attachment, the actual revenue that is derived from parking for the city in fiscal year 05, the actual number was $3.6 million. And time again, people came before the Economic Development Commission and indicated that we should be utilizing these funds for parking purposes. And over time, as you know, we have been doing that. So to answer your question is the operating costs of the new garage will come out of the parking transportation fund.
Right.
Okay? And that is what will be used to fund that garage.
And not the $750,000 that will be coming in on the project. That
would be my first place that I would budget under. And the funds, so for example, if you look at projected, so for example, in 2009 or 2008, when we go forward with this project, you would see an additional amount of money in the parking
fund that would reflect the maintenance and operation of that parking garage.
But that stays in the parking garage
Fund.
fund.
Yes.
But the 700,000 I'm talking about is the tax revenue from the hotel, whatever else is other than the parking garage.
Right, and that's all new tax revenue that would come into the city as a general fund revenue.
That would go into general fund and
Right.
not be part of.
Correct.
That's okay. That's what I needed to know.
Right.
Thank you. I would I don't know. This is a very, very major project that we're getting the city into, the taxpayer. And I don't know if I see right now a lot of benefit to the taxpayer. There'll be obviously your business community is your taxpayer, and it will be a benefit to them because it'll bring more business into town. So, but I'm talking about not only the business community, but the general taxpayer and the rest of the city. I would hope that that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to control taxes, keep taxes down for the rest of the community. And when you see a large project come in like this, I would hope to think that it would help to reduce or at least stabilize their taxes. So that's what I'm looking at. And that's basically what I'm concerned with. And I don't think I'm convinced of that right now.
Your Honor.
Of all the years I've been sitting here as mayor, I have never seen such an open meeting as tonight. I'm talking, Bill.
Okay.
Everyone had a chance to speak. Nobody was shut off. Mr. Bohinko has given out information to everybody at every meeting, so nothing was being hidden at all. And this is the first time I've ever seen so much information given out to the people. I plan to vote for this because as far as I'm concerned, the Sheraton has been a wonderful partner. You all know, I remember they paid off their HUD grants early. They are a good partner, and I think that we should give them the chance and vote on it. And the figures say it's right.
Thank you.
Your Honor, can I just respond? I didn't mean to imply that anybody was shut out or anything was undercover. I'm just saying that I don't see a benefit yet, but I would like to absorb. This is a lot of figures to absorb. We're just getting the final draft of this. So that's all I want to say on that. Thank you, Your Honor.
Very good. Anyone else? Yes, Harold.
This is my last question, Your Honor. Several people said that just suppose the economy changes and there's no hotel built. Now, I'm looking through Harbor Corp's obligation, and will somebody show me if this happens, what obligation do we have? What obligation does Harbor Corp have?
Yeah, I'd ask.
There's no hotel.
But I'd ask you to refer to page 9. The bolded, capitalized second paragraph, beginning with the parties hereby agree.
Yep.
I could read it to you, but it answers your question. In essence, this is the way it works. If the hotel and conference center are built, then the city is obligated to provide discounted parking for the period of time contained in the exhibit. In the event that the hotel is not built, the conference center is not operated at any point in time, then all city obligations, except for the 3 limited obligations listed in the agreement towards Harbor Corp, cease to exist. We will not have to provide Harbor Corp with any parking. And the parking garage would be our parking garage to do as we saw fit with all the spaces.
And what time limit is there on that?
It's shown on the exhibit. They have to maintain the construction schedule shown on Exhibit A.
Miscellaneous provisions?
It's the next to last page of the packet.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Are we all ready to vote on this?
Roll
I'd
call.
like to call for a roll call vote.
Assistant Mayor Grasso.
Yes.
Councilor Farini.
Yes.
Councilor Marchand.
Yes.
Councilor Penelakis.
Yes.
Councilor Hines.
Yes.
Councilor Reynolds.
Yes.
Councilor Whitehouse.
Yes.
Councilor St. Laurent.
No.
Mayor Sorrell.
Yes.
8-1 passes.
I'm going to call for a recess of 5 minutes, please.
Make sure you get this.
Oh, yeah.
In the-
Right now. I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please. We're down to the,
Is there something we said?
no, will you sit down and be good? Approval of grants and donations, which is next. Yeah,
Get in there, man.
where it is. The first one, do you want me to make the motion, Joanne, on those?
All right. There's only one, right?
No, I got two.
Oh, you have two, okay.
She got one.
All right. Are we on the air?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
we're
All
all
right.
set.
Oh, yes.
Mayor Sorrell.
I'd like to make a motion to accept for the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee a donation from Senator Gregg for $100.
Second, Your Honor.
That's the cemetery committee.
What did I say?
Well, the committee, but no, I just thought that people listening might want to know. It's cemetery.
I thought I said.
Any discussion on the motion and the second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Do you have another one?
I have another one. I had a nice surprise walk into my office. My former boss at the bank gave me a check for $1,000 for the new library building.
Is there a second to accept?
Second. John Sargent.
Mayor, would you like to say exactly which bank it was?
Well, you know, we changed hands about 5 times since I was there, but it started out Portsmouth Savings.
Okay.
Then it went to CFX. Then it went to this one. It went to that one. I lost count.
All right.
Actually, we all work together under Portsmouth Savings.
All right. So $1,000. Is there any discussion on accepting that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Now we're down to considerations of resolutions and ordinances. First reading of ordinance amending Chapter 1, Article 2 by the addition of Section 1, Period 2, political contributions to city council candidates.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Is the motion in order, Your Honor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Okay. Your Honor, I move to pass first reading as submitted and hold a public hearing and the second reading at the January 23rd, 2006 City Council meeting.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
I'd like to ask one question. I know
Okay.
I'd like to get this straightened out right up front before the second reading.
Yeah?
Let's turn to, in the ordinance, let's turn to section 1.201: campaign contributions reported required. And I'd like to ask a question about that.
Which one did you say?
Section 1.201: campaign contributions reports required. Now,
Bob could answer that.
well, there's only one question. Anybody who receives less, the way I read it, anybody who receives less than $100 in a donation for his campaign has to report it also.
No.
Is that true?
No, the way it works is if total donations exceed $100, a candidate has to provide a detailed report.
Yep.
If total donations are less than $100, then the candidate simply has to file a sworn statement saying, I received less than $100.
With their names.
No, if it's less than $100, one does not have to put names.
Because I'm wondering if
Total, $100 total.
I'm having coffee with somebody, and somebody gets change back from $10, and he gives it to me, puts that towards a campaign ad. I don't want to have to file his name and make it public.
If you had more than 100 cups of coffee and all the changes together,
All right, that's all I want to know.
Imagine Harold fully caffeinated.
Harold, there's a
100
reason
cups.
why I did this.
Yep. All right.
I think, well, Steve would verify what I'm going to say. There was so much talk about the monies that came in for this campaign and all of the monies in their war chest. And I think this will clear things up once and for all for everybody.
Also, may I ask the city attorney, would you come before the public hearing on the 23rd and let us know what a neighboring city went through? I won't name the city in reference to a ordinance such as this.
yes.
The problems that they have.
Yes, I'm sure you're referring to Dover. I'd be happy to give you a report on
I didn't want to make
Dover.
it. Okay, thank you.
As I understand it, Dover does it by ward, so that it's
Yeah.
set up differently.
Different than us.
It's 50 cents per,
Well, that's a limit.
I have the Dover ordinance. It's quite different, although some of this language is actually taken from it, but
Yeah.
this is...
And you got to remember that there's nothing in that ordinance that talks about a spending cap either.
Right.
Okay? John?
To identify donors, there may be some who would like to make a contribution but choose not to be identified as to who they are given to whomever. That's one thing. The other is, at what point does a son, a daughter, a wife, an aunt, an uncle become a public contributor instead of using your own money? Because I assume that if you were to contribute your own money, that's okay. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So where do you identify your own money? If suppose your wife is working and she contributes, is that my money or just hers? There are issues in there that I would like to have cleared.
So you want to discuss it now? I'm sorry.
Well, I'd like to hear.
In that situation, for example, like any law of this type which would regulate candidates, to some degree or other, whether the law works or not is going to depend upon the good faith of the candidates. Now, there is absolutely no way, as between you and your wife, that anyone other than you is going to be able to identify the source of those sums, of the money, for example. If the owner of a business gave your wife, a sum of money to put into your campaign, then if you are going to report in good faith, you would report that sum. If you were not going to operate in good faith, you might say, oh, that money was
laundered.
Family money, yeah.
Right. Laundered.
Yes, I got to go this side first, Bill. Laura?
Would like Bob to clarify. Are you saying that if 10 people give you $10 apiece, you have to write all 10 names down?
Yes. If one of those people gives you $9, you do not.
But I thought we were, I guess I don't understand this very well. I thought we were going to write an ordinance that if you received any contributions over $100, you would have to declare them. If you made people given $10, $15, $25 might not want to have their names put down.
Well, let me start by saying this. What you have in front of you is a proposed ordinance. Obviously, if the council feels that these limitations should be changed, if these limits should be changed, or if there should be no limits or greater limits, that's the sort of thing that can be accomplished at second reading. But the theory of this particular draft was that if a candidate received a total of less than $100 in contributions, then that candidate shouldn't have to report anything. Just make a sworn statement, I got less than $100.
But if a candidate received more than $100, then that candidate should report everything received from everyone. That's the theory of this particular ordinance, but obviously that can be changed.
Steve?
Thanks, Mayor. First, I express my support for this because far more than the limits, the sunshine, that is, people knowing where you get your money from, is really, I think, goes to the core of trying to increase public trust and integrity and all those values that people want to know about when they're electing folks. And I think this largely does that. But to clarify a few things, if I understand correctly, really the $100 figure is really just a trigger mechanism. If you're under $100 in total contributions, you don't have to report anything except for a statement saying that you've raised less than $100 in total.
Correct.
That's a trigger. I mean, that would be something that if enough people in the council felt really strongly about it, that'd be a pretty easy thing to move up, move down, or eliminate. That's really gravy compared to the body of the rest of it. And I'm indifferent on that one. It's a low enough number that whether it's there or not probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference for most folks. But the important thing, going back to what Councilor Hines was saying about is it your spouse, is it yourself, the laundering scenario and no laundering, is even if you contribute your own money, let's say you contributed $500 of your own money, whether it's a joint account with your spouse or yourself, you would report that anyway. Candidate X, $500. Just because it came from yourself, you would still report it. That would be typical in federal and state law. I assume that would be expected to be the case here as well.
It was not actually the thought in writing this that if you spent your own money on your campaign, that you would have to report it as a contribution to yourself.
I would, and this is something that I'm throwing for discussion, and I have to think about whether or not I want to amend it at this point. I would pretty strongly support including personal contributions as part of the requirement.
I have another question.
Yes, and then down to Bill.
Oh.
Let's get Bill first because his hand was up, John, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Ronna. The thing that I don't see tied into this is your total cost of your campaign. In other words, you spent $1,000. That's not based on. In other words, if you spend $1,000 and you receive $400 from contributions, the $600 is coming out of your pocket. So what he's basically saying, Councilman Marchand, is you don't have to report that $600, just the $400 that you receive from everybody else. So I don't know if you'd base this on your entire, what you spent on your campaign. In other words, if you spent $1,000, do people want to know where all that money came from?
I guess the only thing that can really be said about this right now is this is a question for the council to answer. It could easily be amended to read the way that you suggested.
And I'm sorry.
No.
Yep.
No.
Ned? Are you done, Bill?
I'm done. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. We're all kind of tired now.
Yeah. I'm fully in favor of disclosure, the principle that we're discussing here, and agree with what Councilor Marchand said a few minutes ago. I do, however, wonder. I'm going to wonder out loud here, and then would be interested in discussing with my colleagues on the council and in hearing from other people, from citizens, voters, their thoughts about perhaps including a provision in this in our reporting that would not require disclosure of contributions less than a certain amount. As currently written, what I noticed the proposal, if one receives in excess of $100 in total contributions, then one would have to disclose all contributions, however small. And if I'm correct, that Councilor Pantelakos was getting at that and said, well, if 10 people give me $10, then I'm going to have to disclose them all. I'm just kind of wondering if in a town as small as Portsmouth, where people have, it's a pretty personal town, many personal relationships, if people might not, if this might not have a chilling effect on people supporting, candidates in small amount contributions because they feel like if they give to one, they might have to give to all for fear of offending someone, So if someone wants to give you 10, well, gee, I better give everyone 10, or I'll, that kind of thing. So I wonder if we might not. I'm interested in hearing what people think. If we might not add a provision that requires disclosure of all contributions over, X, $20 or $25 or $50 or something like that, and then assume that any contribution under that amount could not possibly be a sufficient amount to do anything other than be an expression of support for one's candidacy and not have any undue influence, because after all, on the principle of disclosing campaign contributions and how does money affect politics, that's what it's all about. Sunshine, knowing where people's support comes from, and ensuring that support is nothing more than general support.
John?
I have two quick ones. An organization, whatever, decides to support a candidate, and they spend $1,000 for newspaper ads, whatever, and you haven't asked them to do it. They just do it because they want to support maybe 4 or 5 different councilors. Do you judge that as a contribution? That's one. The other, what happens if a person decides, I want to see that guy on the council, and he buys a $500 ad in the newspaper? Didn't ask you, you don't ask him, he bought it, he paid for it, and you get $500 worth of ads. How do we deal?
In my opinion, based upon the language of Section 1-200, both of those situations are campaign contributions. The ordinance, as it's currently written, and of course you can change this, would make it into a contribution. Any donation of property or provision of services to the candidate or any committee organized on behalf of that candidate, directly or indirectly, for the purpose of promoting that candidate to the office of city council. So that was intentionally written to be broad enough to cover the situation you talked about.
So then the newspaper would have to refuse ads from outsiders? Only take them from a councilor, a candidate?
No, the newspaper can accept ads from anybody they want.
And make that candidate violate the rules?
Well, create a reporting requirement on your behalf. But again, all this can be changed. It's the council's ordinance.
Bill? No. Yes, Tom.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I certainly support this. I think it's a good idea to do it. I don't know why we would not. I would ask, though, for second reading if it could be, I vaguely recall that there is a state ordinance for what state reps follow, and I perhaps appreciate receiving a copy of that in our packet for the second reading so that we can compare and contrast them. There are issues about whether or not a corporation contributes versus an individual, et cetera, and I think it provides a degree of specificity that is something we also ought to consider. But certainly I support this in the first instance, and I'd be happy to vote it.
My point,
Ms. Rowe.
my point in doing this was for one reason. I've been on the council for 14 years. When I first ran, I spent $50. My problem is we just cannot get involved with developers. I mean, we can't take large sums from developers because then you're committed to that developer. Now, that's my own personal opinion, and they are out there. There's no question about it. They're out there. And so that was why I wanted to do that, because I felt the people had a right to know, and that's where I'm coming from. Okay. Yes, Bill?
On the same note you're talking about, Mayor Sorrell, I totally agree with you there. There are also chances that organizations associated with the city may be contributing to the candidate for the benefit of their organization, of the city organization. So that's another thing that I see that may be a problem. So that should come out too. I'm not sure whether you know what you're following me, but that can
You're
happen.
talking about PAC money.
Pretty much, yes.
Right. Steve?
Thanks, Mayor. And I agree with what you just said, Mayor, as well as you, Councilor St. Laurent, that, and this is where the sunshine is so valuable, because you put the information out and then you let people decide whether or not it's harmfully impacting the conduct of councilors. But I guess I will take the opportunity, hopefully this doesn't open another can of worms, to follow through and actually offer as an amendment the idea of self-funding, money that you put in yourself as a candidate, should be included in your listing of contributions. So I would propose an amendment that would say under Section 1.201A, the following sentence, and the end of it will be the amendment. The statement shall indicate each of the candidates' contributors with full names and addresses of the contributors in alphabetical order and the amount of the contribution from each contributor, comma, including self-funded contributions.
Second.
Might I suggest this? I've had some pretty bad experiences over the years trying to write amendments late at night on television. And a few days, somehow the next day they just don't read the way you thought they did. My suggestion will be this. If the council wants to move ahead, to schedule this thing for second reading, and any councilors who would like to have specific amendments prepared ahead of time, I'd be happy to write them so they can be brought to the next meeting in writing.
I withdraw my proposed amendment because I think I may have just said it in Spanish. It's 10:30 at night. I'm not even aware, so I'm willing to heed that advice.
Are we ready for the vote?
Yes, we are.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That takes care of that one. We're down to presentations and considerations of written communications and petitions. A letter from Wendy L. Noyce, AIDS Response Seacoast, requesting permission to hold the 10th annual Seacoast AIDS Walk and Dog Walk on Sunday, May 7th, 2006, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Move to the city manager with power.
Second. All in favor?
Quick question, Your Honor.
Yes.
Question. This is information for our city manager. He might be interested in knowing that the route of the walk will be, as you look at the map, will be from City Hall, down Pleasant, down Court, down Middle, down Islington, and down through Congress Street, and down through Market Street and Daniel Street, and back down to Pleasant Street and up to City Hall again. Now, that is the same day as a Children's Day downtown. Mm-hmm. So with 400 walkers and their dogs conflicting with the children downtown, it could be a little problem. They might want to change the route.
Okay, I know that, but they also, this has been a conflict in the past as well. It's been okay, but I'll check.
Okay. I don't think they came up Daniel Street, though.
Okay, let me
and
check.
Daniel Street is blocked off, and part of Pleasant Street is dropped off.
Okay.
And Children's Day is increasing year after year.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of children.
All right.
That's right. John's going to check that out, Harold.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. We all set to vote on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. A letter from Dick Ingram, President of the Greater Portsmouth Chamber of Commerce, requesting permission to hold the 11th Annual Harbor Trail Road Race on Saturday, July 8th, 2006, from 7:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. What you
Move
wish,
to city manager with power.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. A letter from Attorney Kenneth E. Murphy, President of Prescott Park Arts Festival, Board of Directors requesting to be considered as a tenant user of the Children's Museum space.
Move to accept and place on file.
Do I get a second?
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. A letter from Sean Rafferty in support of the passage of a city ordinance requiring candidates to disclose their campaign funds.
Move to accept and place on file.
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed.
Your Honor, I move we suspend the rules in reference to the 10:30 council deadline.
Second. Very good. Aye, Bill. Oh, yeah, his big old cigar.
Got to vote on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. A letter from Sean Rafferty, he's talked to me a couple times, but at least he knows we're moving on it. A letter from William and Christina Campbell requesting that a gate be installed in Dumlin Way neighborhood to stop unnecessary traffic.
Move the city manager with power with the
Traffic and safety.
Move to traffic and safety.
Move to traffic and safety.
Traffic and safety.
What does traffic and safety have to do with it?
Because it would be a city street, and they would.
Is it a city street is what I want to know. Why are they asking for a gate then?
That's a good question. And under my comments, Council, if I might, Your Honor.
Yes,
I did respond to that issue specifically on the, remember last meeting there was a question about the cul-de-sac as well?
Yeah.
So did
Okay, move to traffic and safety.
Second.
All right, John, you do your job now on traffic and safety.
We got the gate.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Now we're down city manager. John has 4 items that require action.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item deals with a annual request of the Creek Athletic Club. Attached a letter from George McKenna, President of the Creek Athletic Club, requesting an extension to its lease, which is scheduled to expire on March 31st, 2006. The request is for a 1-year extension effective April 1st, 2006 to March 31st, 2007. I've attached a copy of the proposed lease, and I'm asking that you authorize me to enter into it. Before I would just say that we usually go to multi-year. We're going to 1 year. If the city council ever chooses to change the use out there, my suggestion is that you do that well in advance of when the lease expires, but that's why we do it year to year.
So moved, Your Honor.
All right, did I get a second?
Second, Your Honor.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed.
I had a question about I want to know if this is a club that's open to the public, or is this a privately owned club that the city...
It is not open to the public. It is a private membership club.
And the city provides them with a building?
Yes.
And it's not open to membership to everyone?
They have some limited number of members. Members of the public cannot walk into the club. You need to be a member. I am not, frankly, familiar enough with the process of becoming a member to answer any of the details about that.
How long has the city allowed this lease?
For a great many years, more than...
Otherwise known as the Crick AC, right?
I think the Italian American Club or the Italian...
Well, there isn't too many people that live in the creek that lived there many years ago. Just curious.
Laura, we as kids were kicked out of there so the Crick AC could move in there, because that's where we used to play in the building.
This is the reason that I'm asking the question, is that a city building is being used by a club, a private club, that other people cannot go into or cannot join. I find that a little odd.
Your Honor?
Yes, John.
That's why we went to this year-to-year lease rather than have it used to be a 5-year lease. So if after you act on this matter this evening, if there is a strong feeling, we need to start working. In all fairness to the people that have had this club for that many years, we need to start working on that immediately after. But, I would say that in all fairness, you would have to give 1 more year. If the council felt really strongly as a council that they wanted to terminate this lease, I would start now, or maybe in a couple months, talking to them, telling them what your reasons are. But that's all I'm saying.
I agree that we need a year's lease, but I also think that we need to, in the meantime, look into this matter, that if we're going to furnish buildings for certain organizations for $1 a year, we'd better get a lot of buildings available because people are going to come asking for them.
And we also have the Italian
American.
that
Sons of Italy.
Sons of Italy.
Sons of Italy,
Yeah.
and they have a city building as well.
And then the old schoolhouse up by the pond.
Out at the plan.
Your Honor, when I was
I
in...
think one of the biggest things here is, I think one of the biggest things here is the people are concerned because your big playground on Pine Street is right there.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not going to say what I feel about this club, but I don't think it should be there.
I just asked that question because people have asked me questions about this building, and I can't give them any answers except that it's a club. And when they ask me, can I join the club, I have to say, I don't know. So I would like it looked into.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your Honor, when I was in going to college, I was a playground instructor at that place, and the building was locked then during the day for the kids. Even if it was raining or something, we couldn't get in. So it was
Right,
a
so we were
distance
kicked out.
then, and I'm not going to tell you how many years ago that was.
Leave it alone.
A long time ago.
I think it's time, John, to look into it.
Okay.
I really do.
All right.
Now, I hope we all don't get shot. I mean, some of them can be kind of rough, And John, how can you make out with the gun place down on...
That no longer exists.
Okay, very good.
Where does this council?
Oh, dear. No, I haven't got anything against him, but how many belongs to that club? It's very little.
Quick, AC?
Yeah.
Seems to me I saw a membership list and it was greater than 50, but less than 100, somewhere in that range.
Oh, you're kidding me, Rob.
Yeah.
Good, they couldn't even get that in there.
Well, they wouldn't all be there at the same time, Your Honor. They have like a monthly dinner, and then
Oh.
I think Sunday morning.
Well, I'm going to stay out of it because I'm too young to die yet. Oh, I'm just teasing everybody. Don't take me serious. Okay, now where are we?
You vote on this?
Okay, we
The
already...
city manager is trying to get his...
Well, you're getting yourself, you're getting me in the trouble.
We voted on it.
We voted on
We
it.
voted on
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Voted
voted
on it,
right.
John. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item is a request for a 3-month extension to the Poco Diablo lease. As you're aware, the city has been in the process of negotiating with John Gollum concerning a long-term extension to the Poco Diablo lease, a deck lease. It appears that the negotiations involve more than expected, and they will not be completed by December 31st, at which time the existing lease expires. Because of this expiration date, Mr. Gollum is requesting that the city do a short-term extension of its lease until we finalize the long-term negotiations.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I move to extend the Poco Diablo deck lease for 3 months under the same terms of the existing lease.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item deals with the proposed rent abatement from the Community Council of Senior Citizens. Attached a letter from Nancy Fulford, Director of Community Council and Senior Citizens. As you can see from the attached letter, their agency will be closing in February of 2006. In her letter, she requests the city forgive rent for the final 2 months of December and January. For your information, the Council of Senior Citizens rents approximately 2,254 square feet in the Seidel building at a monthly rate of $1,603.73 for a total of $3,207.46. Because of their funding issues, it would be my recommendation that we forgive the rent for the months of December and January as requested.
Adam. Your Honor.
Second.
Ms. Rowe?
John, now, once that happens, how much will be opened up for somebody else?
The first floor of the Seibel building right now would have, Family Services would have right now one office plus the regional health coordinator, and I think Family Services during holidays takes an additional office to, for distribution. So it would have that whole section open. Now, we need to remember that because of the grant, we received about $800,000 in community development block grant funds from the county, and we would have to maintain nonprofits in there that had a benefit to low and moderate income people.
All right.
All ready for the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item is reappointment of David Holden to the Greater Portsmouth Transportation Management Committee. Attached is a letter from George Bald asking for the city's representative to be appointed to the Greater Portsmouth Transportation Management Committee. Dave Holden has been serving in this capacity, and I'm recommending that he be reappointed to the committee. The City Council needs to approve my recommendation in accordance with the Pease Development Authority requirements.
So moved, Your Honor.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Dave, are you still awake up there?
He's elated.
Okay. Does anyone have any informational items under John that they'd like to ask him about?
May I make a comment with respect to John? And that would be, I have neglected the opportunity to say so, but I think that the transfer station is wonderful. And it's a pleasure, and I get good comments from the people out there, and it was a nice job, and it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Howard?
I'd just like to thank the city manager for giving us the update on the library construction. Very informative, and I want to thank him.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is that it on John? All right. Now we're down to the mayor and appointments. And as I told you all, I will not be making any more appointments, but we didn't want to lose this man, Jameson French, under the trustees of the trust fund. So this is only for consideration, and then if you feel it's somebody you don't want, you see our new mayor. To be voted on, the economic department, Michael Murray.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Let's see. This is a reappointment to be voted on for the Board of Adjustment, Charles A. LeBlanc.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a comment about boards and commissions now. With Mr. Marchant coming in as the new mayor, I would like to suggest on these applications that they not give, for reference, they not use somebody as a staff member from City Hall. Several of them have been doing that recently, and I think that the whole purpose is to get a reference from someone away from the hub of the city here.
And I'm not sure if we would need to formalize that beyond a verbal request. It's something that could be put on the forms, but
sure.
Seems like a reasonable idea.
For instance, this one has two people from City Hall as references, and I think I would like to see references outside of the family of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like something that we could easily put on the form, and that gentle reminder should help.
You all got your absentees on the commission and board, and do be careful. Bob, how many meetings can they miss?
3.
Did we decide on 3?
Your Honor, there is no hard and fast rule.
There isn't.
It is
Okay. Okay, right. Can be more than 3. Oh, okay. All right. That takes care of that. Now let's see. I have a resignation that was given to me from Kenneth Smith, 298 Myrtle Avenue in Portsmouth. Dear Mayor Sorrell, please accept my resignation from the Planning Board and the Historic District Commission effective December 31st, 2005. I have enjoyed my time on the board, and thank you for the opportunity to work with such a fine group of people. I look forward to my new position on the City Council and wish you all the best with your retirement. Kenneth E. Smith, Chairman of the Planning Board and a member of the Historic District.
Move to accept with regret, Your Honor.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. That takes care of the mayor. Now we're down to Councilor Hines.
I move that we accept and place on file the minutes of the Parking Committee meeting held December 8th, and I would like to inform you that the issue is tabled till the January meeting, and the second issue will be bringing up this week for a study.
Councilor Hines, you said traffic and safety first, correct? For traffic and safety, and then we'll do parking?
Yes, but that's for traffic and safety.
Thank you.
The other one will be parking, yes. I don't know
Second.
how we got them together.
We'll move the traffic and safety.
Oh, sorry.
And then we'll do parking.
You can see
That's
it's
okay.
midnight.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. John, you gonna give one on parking now?
That was for traffic and safety, Councilor Hines. Now we need a motion for parking.
The traffic and safety and parking are merging, I guess. If not, they're both on this particular issue.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion, Your
I
Honor.
made a motion.
I move we accept the Parking Committee's report as submitted to us for the December 13th.
John? You need a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question, Your Honor?
Do you want to say something?
Yeah. This is the Parking Committee. In reference, I see in the minutes, John, that you talked about a voucher system for emergency snow parking. You said you was going to look into it, have your staff come back. This was on the 8th, 13th, I guess. Have you done anything in reference to that?
Ryan, I'll spend 2 minutes. It will be very brief. What we decided to do, and we'll be bringing it back to the parking committee, is that we're going to do a sheet of coupons that will be numbered. There'll be 10 of them, basically, on a sheet. And what will happen is, if you're a resident of the city, you'll be able to go to the parking department and get those coupons. You won't have to exchange any money. You have to give your address, where you live, and we will number those, let's say 1 through 10, and let's say it's 500 FW Hartford Drive or whatever it is. I'm a resident of the city. I get 10 of those. When there is a snow emergency declared, somebody will be able to go into the parking garage. They'll be able to park overnight. And within 2 hours after the emergency is taken off, which is typically around 8 a.m. in the morning, you have to be out of there by 10 o'clock, you go to the booth, you hand your coupon with your number, and you will only pay $3 maximum. And they'll staple it to the ticket, and so we'll reconcile that. If we start seeing, it's not a material number, but it will allow a person that lives in the city, downtown, that needs to get off the street, a maximum of $3 rather than the full 75 cents an hour. And there will not, like I said, we will have all those coupons numbered, and they will actually be able to utilize. They won't have to exchange any money at the parking office. They'll just have to register, basically. And then when they use it, they'll pay their $3 and we'll clip it to the ticket. That's pretty simple, straightforward. Maybe we have 10, 11 snow emergencies a year. It's really not a material number, but it helps people.
Good move, Rich. Good move, John.
Excellent.
We're going to make this public hearing somehow?
Yes, we're going to have a special parking committee meeting. It will be a one-year pilot program, and just like the omnibus that we do in the spring, if it's successful, we'll bring that forward as a permanent issue.
Under miscellaneous, I would like to do 2 things. First of all, I would like Bill St. Laurent to come forward. I want to give him a plaque with a special thanks for your years of service to the city of Portsmouth. Thank you very much. You're welcome. The other thing is, as you all know, this is my last night, and I just want to say I'm going to miss the people. I'm going to miss my kiddos, but I'm quite sure Steve will take over for me all of the way. But I would like to say one thing to each one of you. The city council is as good as your city manager that stands behind you. Remember that. So I don't know how I would have ever gotten through my 8 years without John by my side. So heed that word because it's right. Okay, yes, Harold.
Yes, Your Honor. I've sat with many elected officials in my 29 years of serving my city, and I've got to admit that my fellow councilor beside me, Bill St. Laurent, is one of the finest. He does his homework. He comes prepared, and that's very important. And I'll miss him terribly, and I'd like to compliment him for all these years that he served the city. Your Honor.
Yes, Joe.
Point of personal privilege, if I might.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I too, would like to join in with Councilor Whitehouse in just saying that one thing that I do admire about Councilor St. Laurent is his civility in his debate, and in all instances, he has been a gentleman to deal with on all occasions, and certainly as a public official in the capacity that I have, that is really something that I value very highly, and I want to thank you, Councilor, for that.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
We can miss each other. Bill?
Yes. Now we can spend more time with each other. Could I say just a few words?
Sure. Love to have you.
I want to thank the council for all the kind words. There was an article in the paper shortly after the recount, and a lot of you said very nice things about me, and I appreciate it. And nice things were said tonight, and that means a lot to me. I can't say that this wasn't a tough thing. I hate losing and being off this council. I love being a councilman. I love working for the city of Portsmouth and the citizens of Portsmouth. I do want to thank all 1,600 people that voted for me. Obviously, they did it. They helped. I want to thank the people that spend a whole day on the recount for me, watching. I mean, that was a real tedious job, and I can never thank them enough for the time that they spent that day helping me out. Like I said, I thank you all. I'm going to miss this. I never thought of myself as a politician in the city of Portsmouth. I always considered myself a concerned citizen that looked for the best for the city of Portsmouth and the citizens of Portsmouth. And that's all why I'm here. I have no other reason to be here other than that reason. And I enjoyed every minute of it. It was hard. I enjoyed working with you council people. You've been supportive. And now I'm going to spend more time with my grandchildren. Thank you very much, every one of you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed.
Okay, Billy.